Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Tetracast, RPG Site's weekly podcast. I'm your host, Brian Vitale. Joining me, we have Josh Torres,
Oh, it's the calm before the storm, it feels like.
Adam Vitale,
Hello.
James Glizio,
Hey, folks.
and Chao Min Wu.
How's it going?
Yeah, no Mikhail as of this point. It is the middle of the night for him, so we'll see if he shows up. We'll see if he doesn't, but we'll press on regardless. But yeah, it is the week before Summer Game Fest, last weekend in May. Last couple weeks have been kind of quiet, so we kind of were able to catch up in some of our backlogs, play some games outside of the RPG space, etc. This week, not so much. We had some news that we were expecting, like the Dragon Quest showcase. We'll have a lot of news coming out of that. Some news we weren't expecting. We had some like indie showcase of some sort that announced a handful of indie RPGs. And then I think a lot of studios and publishers and developers are kind of timing a lot of their announcements around this summer window, because next week will be Summer Game Fest, and Adam, Josh, and James will all be taking part in that, as well as a few other people from the site. So next week's podcast might be kind of interesting, but luckily we have a lot of releases and news to cover this week, so we don't get too behind as people are out of town for Summer Game Fest. And also, just one programming note: I'm a little bit short of breath. Like, I'm for some reason just under the weather, so that comes through in the recording. My bad. But the first person that's going to be talking today is about a game that released less than 48 hours ago, maybe 24 hours ago or so at the time of recording, and that is Mina the Hollower. So we'll be talking about that first. We're going to take a little bit of a tangent. We're going to talk about 007 First Light. We're going to talk about the new Utawarerumono game. And then I will have a little bit of a follow-up for Zero Parades that I introduced last week, if time allows. And then we'll go into the announcements, trailers, and all the usual rundown. So without further ado, I will hand it off to Adam to talk to us about your time so far with Mina the Hollower, because I know you haven't finished it yet, but I know you put some time into it.
Yeah, I was really hoping Mikhail would be on because I believe he's played more than I have, but I played a bit. And then I got caught up in other, projects I'm working on. So Mina the Hollower, it's from Yacht Club Games. It's kind of like their second property after Shovel Knight and all the other Shovel Knight, all the different Shovel Knight projects they've done over the last several years. So obviously I think it was a Kickstarter forever ago, and it's been in development for a long time. So it's kind of been floating around for a bit, but it's finally out. I'm sure you've seen it by now. It looks like that Game Boy era Zelda type visual style to it, that pixel style. And you play as Mina, who is a mouse, and she is a hollower, and that means that she digs under the ground. And this is I think the broad takeaway to this game, you'd ask like, well, what type of game is it? It's like a fusion of a lot of different ideas kind of all together in one really pretty compelling package. It looks like the Zelda games. I've seen people say it's got, some combat stylings more so that like a classic Castlevania game. It has a very clear Dark Souls influence with how like its checkpoints and bone system works, with bones being your currency. And so when the reviews came out earlier this week, there was quite a bit of discussion about like how this game is sort of like almost feels like a link across history in terms of the types of influences it pulls from decades apart. And I think it comes together as something pretty darn compelling and satisfying and fun. To me, kind of when I'm playing this game, it almost feels like I'm saying to myself, they don't make them like this anymore. I don't necessarily mean that like genuinely, but it kind of does feel like, something that I could have played years ago in my childhood, but it also does have like a lot of those newer kind of wrinkles and influences to it. So it doesn't feel just like a retread. It feels like something new. So I think it's kind of got that interesting position and the type of game that it is and how people are basically responding to it. I've seen some people, maybe not so fond of the fact that it does have those Dark Souls influences, the checkpoints and the bone system, and when you fall in battle, you have to go collect your bones, else they're lost forever, and those sorts of things. But when I'm playing this game, we've talked about it before in this podcast. It's a really good distraction game, and what I mean by that is you're going in like some direction. Here, let me set the premise. You are Mina. You're on a boat. at the beginning of the game, and you're heading back to the town of Ossex after like a 10-year time away from this town. And then you get attacked by a monster. I don't know what this monster is yet. I haven't gotten further enough to know if there's anything more to this or not. And then you basically learn that you need to, in this area around this town, you need to reset 6 different towers around town to basically stabilize the area to have the civilization work as it should. And so when you basically get past the opening section, you can kind of go in whatever direction you want and do whatever you want. In fact, I actually did not even know this. When I'm playing this game, I'm like, where am I supposed to go? Like, where is the game actually intending for me to go? I don't know. So I'm just going to pick a direction and go. It kind of feels like some open world games have this sort of feeling, which this is definitely not open world, but I just went in a direction and just decided what's over here. And then I get distracted by, a path I see or some puzzles and like, what's over there? And then like, I kind of lost track of what I was doing and I just headed in a different direction. And you see treasure chests abound, you see paths abound throughout the game. And before I know it, I find myself really deep into the swamp area trying to find trinkets and items and fighting enemies and leveling up. And it's sort of that sort of game where I kind of find myself losing time to it just because I keep getting distracted on different things that I'm interested in. Apparently there is a hint system in the game via a newspaper, like a newspaper boy in the middle of town kind of shouting you, like kind of giving you a clue of which direction you're supposed to go. I guess you're supposed to go to the crypt early on. I went to the swamp bayou area. I have no idea if I had any business being there early in the game, but that's where I went.
You went through the catacombs instead of the undead burg.
But yeah, so it basically allows you. It's the sort of game where once you kind of realize how the different like mechanics work, like for example, you can bury under the ground for a moment of time, which speeds you up. It allows you to jump gaps and things like that. And once you kind of learn like how you can get around in the game pretty much allows you to go anywhere. It doesn't. I've seen some people compare it to like a Metroidvania, but to me, at least what I've played so far, it doesn't really feel like it has that sort of like lock and key. Like, oh, you have to get the long jump upgrade to get over here. It's like, no, you can get over there. It might be easier later on, but you can get over there from the beginning if you know what you're doing, or whatever. How do I put it? It doesn't really have like isolated like dungeon areas like a Zelda game. It's not like you enter an area and like this is the dungeon. It's more just like the 6 regions of the world map are sort of like dungeons built into the map. You can kind of think of it like the overworld in like Link's Awakening or Oracle of Ages. So no dungeons really. It's just kind of these areas of the map that you can explore that have puzzles and paths and shortcuts that you can create, like any good Souls game or whatever. And there's there's boss battles that require smart maneuvering and timing and knowing when to attack and knowing when to dodge and knowing when to jump and all those good things. I have seen some people criticize that they're not a big fan of contact damage, where if you just touch your pixel of Mina touches a pixel of an enemy, you get damage, which I don't know, that just kind of feels like a classic Game Boy game to me. It's like, don't touch the enemies, you're going to get hurt.
I'm trying to think. That's like I know it's not really a Zelda-like, even though it has that appearance. That's like how Zelda-likes work. Is if you touch an enemy, you take damage, right? How does like itemization work? Because you said it's not like lock and key, and you don't get like bespoke items from like dungeon type things. So how like itemization and progression, because they might tie together.
So you get to at the beginning of the game, you choose a weapon. And I've already seen some, like, it almost feels like old school type discussion among people, like, which weapon did you pick? And, like, which weapon is the best to pick at the beginning? There's, like, a hammer, there's, like, a dual sword thing, and I don't remember what other weapon is available right at the beginning. I believe there are 5 total weapons in the game. Don't quote me on that. And so you have, like, a main attack that you use to deal damage. I have this sort of like dual sword thing that it's almost like you're thrusting with your left and right arms. You have that weapon, and then you have what are called sidearms. Sidearms are basically like your secondary weapon that you pick up, and it's more like a consumable item. You pick up, for example, like these throwing axes that you have, and you can start throwing them to do damage, and sometimes even respond to puzzles if you need to hit something far away or whatnot. And then there's like a boomerang, and then there's like you can even get like a little like ball and chain little pet guy that is a is a secondary weapon. So these sort of weapons are weapons that I think feels more like a Castlevania thing, like the classic Castlevania, where you pick up like the holy water or the sickle or whatever else is in those classic Castlevania games, where it's more like an arcadey. You pick this item up and you have so many of them that you can use before you can run out. So you have those, and then you have trinkets, which are like accessories that you can wield, which have all these sorts of various effects. For example, there's one that makes it so you do damage when you dive underground, so you can maybe use that to your advantage by diving around enemies. There's ones that I think like increase the amount of time that you can be underground. There's ones that change the property of your attacks a little bit. It doesn't really have like a Zelda you picked up the hammer or whatever, which now allows you to open, like I said, those Metroid-like new paths that you couldn't get to before. It doesn't really have that. And I think this is where people are more comparing the game to like a Castlevania, like a classic Castlevania instead. I've done 2 of the towers in the game, and I think there's 6 total, and maybe like one final one at the end. So I haven't like seen everything there is to see in the game, but I was really enjoying it. I don't really know if I have anything insightful to say. I just think it's one more obvious thing to talk about. In Junior's review, so Junior reviewed it for us on RPG Site, and he basically said like this is a sort of game that he called it an all-timer, which I was like, can you really call something an all-timer before it even launches? I don't know, but that's how high what he was on this game. But more importantly, he was saying that this is the sort of game you can recommend to literally anyone who plays games. And the reason why is its accessibility options that it has. I believe in the game they're called modifiers. And basically in the game, I looked a little bit through the modifiers myself, but otherwise I'm just playing it, naturally or whatever, how it's standardly set up. But you can go into these modifiers and you can change a bunch of different things about the game. Like, for example, it's like, do you want to jump higher? Sure, turn on the jump higher modifier. Or do you want to take out the RPG elements and make it just a Zelda-like? You can do that. Or do you want to make it so that you can bury underground forever? And like it's almost like a cheat code. Like there's modifiers that are more just like small tweaks, and modifiers that are like almost just like an old-fashioned, cheat code. I think there might even be invulnerability, just hey, you don't take damage. So that's what Junior was saying, that he was saying this game is, obviously he enjoyed it a lot. He gave it a 10 out of 10. But the fact that you can pretty much give this to anyone and they should be able to enjoy it. Although I have seen some people a little bit, like, well, I wish I didn't have to use a modifier to change it. I wish it was just like this, which I don't know if that's just, some personal hang up, but there's a lot in the game that you can tweak about how the game plays and how it's formatted in terms of how the difficulty works, how the damage works. It is a pretty, I don't want to say it's like a tough game, like a brutal, like, hardcore Souls-like game, but it's definitely not a cakewalk. It does require some practice and know-how, and you might die onto a boss a few times before you realize the best way to avoid hits and give damage and all that. So I don't know if I have much else to say. I don't know if there's any other I don't know if there's any questions.
I'm curious, because last year when Silk Song came out, a lot of the discussion about that, and I'm sure it's a fantastic game. I personally don't have any sort of interest to play it. I wasn't really a big Hollow Knight person either, but it's cool that people liked it. But definitely like a good chunk of players felt like a lot of the difficulty in it didn't complement sort of like the progression, like the people, when people discuss this game, they talk about like the long run backs to bosses when they died to a boss. Their most recent bonfire was like sometime back, and they had to go navigate this particular area that they did not like to navigate through just to get another shot at the boss to continue practicing on it. Have you encountered any sort of like daunting runbacks at Mina, like after dying to a boss or anything like that?
There are some, but it doesn't really feel. First of all, there aren't that many bosses. like it's more puzzles and exploration and finding trinkets and finding keys to open doors and learning how to get around. But there are a few bosses where there's only so many checkpoints. Your checkpoints in these games are like I forget what they call it, Underlab, I think, which is basically like your bonfire. And so there were a few times where like I died, I lost my bones, and I'm like 4 screens away at my Underlab, and I need to get through the next 4 screens pretty quickly to get back to where my bones are to pick them up. That never like bothered me though. That just kind of felt I don't know, like felt natural. Like, oh, okay, I gotta just make even some Zelda games are like that.
Yeah.
Where it's just like there's some rooms that are like a checkpoint, like, oh, okay, you just need to make it through these couple of puzzles and then get back to where you were. I didn't feel like there was ever any punishing boss that I was dying to, like 2 dozen times, and I did the run back again. It was just, a couple. Like, really
there's definitely like, I know, because there's always some like Silk Song exclusive mechanics that like that made it more punishing for some players, because there's a whole economy to it where you have to like pay a certain amount of resources to unlock a fast travel point in that game, which most other games don't. So like, and that's not to say like I feel one way or the other about it, but it's definitely Silk Song had its own mechanics going on that exacerbated the problem for some people in that regard. I was curious, like I'm in favor of like a game, whether it's difficult or not, it matches up with like the vision that the developers had for it. It's kind of like that similar discussion, like should From Software Souls games have a difficulty mode selector or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't really care, as long as it kind of, the developers should be free to make a game the way that they want it to, and I don't hold them in one way or the other in that regard. And like you said earlier, this game has accessibility options. The only trade-off that you're doing is you're disabling achievements if you turn them on, which makes sense in that regard. Though now there's like this weird discussion over like some people feel like they are disincentivized to engage with those accessibility options because they want they don't want to feel like they're missing out on the achievement of doing so. It's like, well, it's kind of have it one way or the other. You can't have both in that regard, because that makes sense that if you want to get that arbitrary digital achievement thing, then you play the game that the quote unquote default normal settings that the developers wanted you to, because they want you to
I think it's a fair trade-off.
get like build up mastery of the game, becoming better at the game, instead of like, I don't know what accessibility options there are, but instead of like flipping on God mode and going through it. I'm curious to try this out. Whenever I have time, I will.
I mean, it literally came out like 24 hours ago at the time of recording. So
for sure, yeah.
In this game, I have 2 other things I want to say. It does feel a bit also some of the Zelda influence when you're in like the town of Ossex, and which is kind of like your home base. It's kind of like literally the center of the map, and then you can kind of like go, wheels on or arms on a clock or whatever to like 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 8 o'clock to the different sections of the map. And basically, like, there's a bunch of different NPCs in the game that you talk to them and they might say something like relatively like cryptic, like, oh, I wish I could, get over, that, like I could get over that ledge or whatever, climb up that tree. And you're like, what's he talking about? And this kind of felt like classic Zelda to me, where they're like, they're giving hints at, like there's something over there that you should find. And sometimes there's like minor puzzles where you have to realize, oh, like if you go around this direction and if you maybe like climb up some ladders and do some jumps that you didn't know you could do, or whatever, you can maybe find a key or a trinket or something. There's like these little mini quests scattered throughout. And that kind of feels like a classic like Game Boy Zelda to me, where there's like in Zelda you would get like a heart piece. In this game it would be like a trinket. Or there are items in this game that also increase like your health as well as your like a heart piece, or like how many secondary like charges you have for your secondary weapon. Like there are upgrades to that too that you can find. So there's always like on every screen in the game, there's always feels like there's something to find or something to do. It's very much a puzzle game in that regard. The game is also just very dense. It's got that sort of side-scrolling, again, GBA Zelda format to it, but it never just feels like you're just going through a screen just to get from one end to the other. like, all right, what secrets await me on this screen, or what secrets await me on the next screen? There's like always something to find. And I think the art style is incredible for what it is. Obviously, it's got a very certain look to it, which maybe not everyone is fond of, but I just think it looks great. If Mikhail was here, I think he would tell you that the game works basically perfectly on Steam Deck. I believe if people have been very fond of it, how it works on like handheld PCs. He can probably tell you. I think he probably put up an article. Did he put up an article?
Yeah, the title of his article, usually he says like it's good on platform X, but what about platform Y or something like that, which is fine. But this one he said Mina the Hollower is 1 second. Where is it? Mina the Hollower is excellent on Steam Deck and Switch, but amazing on Switch 2 and PS5. So excellent or amazing are the two adjectives that he used for Mina the
I don't know
Hollower.
which one's better. The word usage still.
Excellent or amazing.
You talked about NPCs, like giving you hints in a way for progression. Like how much of a factor? Not from like a judgment or quality perspective. Just curious. Like, is the world pretty isolated, or are there other NPCs kind of everywhere, or is it somewhere in the middle? Like how densely populated is the world?
There's not a ton of dialogue, but there's a fair bit. So there's going to be a lot more in the town, of course, in terms of people you can talk to. And like, for example, there's this one like girl in town who keeps talking about that she wants a bouquet of flowers. And actually, I have not figured out what she means by that. She's like, I gotta be able to I have to get a bouquet somewhere. I don't know where, and I'm sure she gives me a reward if I find it or something, but I haven't figured it out yet, so I kind of like just pinned it for later. But I actually, when I was on my feed the other day, I actually saw, I think it was a Polygon article, like how to get the bouquet. So there's all these sorts of guides going up that people are doing for clicks and traffic about like how to solve these kind of various puzzles. And then as you go out into the world, like for example, you go out into the bayou, which is the first area I went, and it's more, there's a lower density of dialogue. There's more combat and exploration and stuff. But like you go out into the bayou, and then there's like a trio of like aquatic animals just kind of standing in one of the swamp screens, and you talk to them, and they're like, "Hey, what are you doing out here?" Well, while you're out here, we need you to help us find our composer or our conductor. He's out here in the swamp somewhere. So it's like you're in the swamp, you meet these kind of NPCs, they're just kind of standing around, and they kind of give you like a quest. There's no like quest log, but they kind of tell you there's someone else you need to find out here, and you should return them to the group, and you assume you're going to get something for doing that. And that sort of stuff is all over the place. And that's sort of what one of the things I meant by calling it a distraction game is you kind of have all these little tasks that you kind of learn, like I need to figure out how to do this, I need to figure out how to go over there, I need to figure out what's up with those guys, and all these different things you're trying to do in the game.
I remember like we talked about the Elliot demo, which I know is just a short demo, but like I wish there was more going on in the overworld, because it just felt like once you left town there was not zero but very few people around. So there, like I didn't feel distracted.
Yeah.
So I don't know, the way you're describing it sounds like a good they hit a good bar.
How is just general navigation in this game? Does it like auto map as you explore, or is there even a map?
There really isn't a map. Partway through the game, you can get a world map that is very kind of basic. It feels like an old school map where it's not like a video game map that tells you you're exactly in this, plus shaped room and you can see exactly where the exits are. No, it just kind of tells you, hey, you're somewhere over here in the crypt area, roughly in the center. You can see there's maybe like a lake to your left, and maybe there's some water over there, or maybe it's a very. In fact, I think I have a screenshot of it somewhere. But it's more old school in that you're not following a map. There is no mini map. You're just got to remember what screens lead to what screens, and it's. I keep saying it feels like Zelda in some regards, and that's where it kind of feels like Zelda, where it's not quite as like some of the classic Zelda games have like a Zelda like Hyrule map that sort of tells you where you're at, but maybe not so specifically like room by room. It feels something like that. Here, I'll post a screenshot of what the map looks like. It just kind of like you have your city in the center, and you have a little icon that shows you where you are. But that's the whole world. That's the whole world map. Yeah. And you can see the bayous in the lower left, which is where I went, and I think you can see where you dock with your boat at the lower part. So yeah, it's a very kind of vague map.
Yeah, okay, so they have to explain it to people, listening in. So it's basically like it shows you like the regions, like an overworld map. Like you see a forest to the north and some like town area to the lower left. But it's like all divided up like almost like in modules, and it won't tell you exactly like you might be in a certain part of like say the forest area, but it won't tell you exactly if you're to like exactly like to the very left of the forest area or to the very right to show you that you're nearing a border to the next region. It seems like it'll just show you you're in this region, but it's up to you to find out like exactly how deep into a region you are, and to suss out where the border is to the next region. In that regard, and then it'll show you, okay, you're in the next region now, but obviously won't tell you how close or far away you are to like the border of region. If I'm reading this correct.
I do have one kind of like minor. I have a couple of criticisms, and it may be more personal taste than anything else. But one part about this game that I'm a little bit mixed on is it does have like some RPG progression, which is where this is where it's different from a Zelda game. You gain bones, and bones are used as currency in the game to buy upgrades, to buy your secondary weapons, to buy. You pick one weapon at the beginning of the game, but then you can buy the other weapons in the game.
Which one did you choose? Because I went with hammer on the demo, and people who chose hammer seems like they all got the short end of the stick, which I chose.
Wait, I've heard a lot of people like the hammer.
I heard a lot of people say like they enjoyed the hammer, but it felt like the other weapons felt way better.
I forget what it's called, but it's like I said, it's like the two like kind of like fencing swords or whatever.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And so I picked that one because they're maybe not as damaging, but they're quicker, I think, than like the hammer, which is kind of like this slow lumbering swing. But yeah, you gain bones, and then you have three different stats. You have your attack stat, you have your like defense stat, which reduces how much damage you take, and you have your stat for how much your secondaries, like how much damage your secondaries do. And so different enemies in the game will drop bones. Like you kill an enemy and a little number will pop up, might say like 30. So you get 30 bones for killing an enemy, kind of just like a Souls game. You get so many souls per enemy kill, and then you can kind of accumulate these, and then once they reach a certain level you can level up, and you pick one of your stats and you improve it. And that's one of those things where it's just like, okay, this is just how the game is. But there was a moment where I found an area of the game where the enemies inside of it seemed to be tuned to be a higher level than what I was capable of. So me and my like RPG brain, I'm thinking, I think if I can squeeze out a few kills in these guys, I can gain a lot of bones and level up quickly. So I actually just found myself for a moment like just kind of grinding in a sense, because it's an RPG, you can do that, or at least has some RPG mechanics. Like I'm just trying to kill some of these tough enemies I can manage, get somewhat inflated income of bones, and level up my stats, and you can do that, and then like now I'm more powerful than I was, and if I go in this other direction or whatever, I'm more capable now.
Yeah, Silksong didn't have stats, but there was a similar situation where there was like one specific room that people would run back and forth because it had strong enemies that were easy enough to kill, but would give you a bunch of like the beads that you could use at shops.
Yeah, so there's a part of me that kind of wonders, like, this is one of those things I don't have like a declarative statement on, but it's like, would I enjoy this more if it didn't have the RPG mechanics and it was just like the exploration and puzzling and more just pure Zelda? But also, I think some of the Souls-ish, RPG-ish stuff, I think it's also what makes this more of its own thing versus just a callback or a copycat or whatever. So, again, I don't have a declarative statement here, but it's one of those things where it's like, it's not necessarily enjoyable to grind to level up stats, but, being an RPG brain person, sometimes I feel like that's maybe efficient. Like if
We're such bad RPG fans, we keep shit talking RPG mechanics.
it's one of those things where it's like, if I take 10 minutes of my time to grind up here just a little bit, maybe raise my strength by 2 or whatever, then I'll have an easier time throughout the rest of the games. Like, is it worth it? Like if I just kind of dedicate 10 minutes to just killing some enemies over and over, which you would never do in a Zelda game because there'd be no point. So that's there. It's just how the game is structured, and that's how those RPG mechanics are incorporated. So
the underlab checkpoints, they're also fast travel points, right?
Yes.
Okay.
No.
Oh, okay. I thought they were. Is there fast
If
travel?
if they are fast travel points, I have not unlocked that yet.
Okay.
Are they? This might sound like a dumb comparison. Do they look like mirrors?
The
Or
underlap?
not?
It's like a
Okay,
little
so-
burrow that you dig into.
Okay, so I was watching whatever the zero punctuation under a new name, whatever that's called again.
Fully ramblomatic.
That's it. And he said, like, I didn't realize these were fast travel points. You have to like walk into them for 3 seconds and then they're fast travel points. So apparently it was something that there is fast travel, but it was not intuitive to him. So
Huh.
I know it's kind of a random shout out, but
Oh.
it's like, oh, interesting. But I haven't played it myself to like really tether it to what he was specifically talking about.
Yeah, I haven't watched that yet because I opened it up and then I saw in the comments, oh yeah, he spoiled some stuff. And it's like, okay, I'll maybe come back after I play.
But yeah, I mean, it's hopefully it shakes out for the developers because Bloomberg did that investigation on what's going on with the game a while back and spoke with the developers, and a lot is riding on the future of that on Yacht Club's future, depending on the performance of this game.
I believe they said that if they sell 200,000, they'll be fine. And as of yesterday morning, like very early morning yesterday, they'd sold 55,000 on Steam. Obviously, they've sold more since then on Steam, and then that's not accounting for every other platform.
Right.
I'd imagine it's selling especially well on like Switch, Switch 2. So I think there's a decent chance that they've already hit that 200K mark. But even if not, I think it's also safe to say that they're going to reach that very quickly. So
Yeah, I'll wait on the official, I'm curious to say if they make a statement on it, whether it's selling one way or the other on that front. And I think if it hits if we get like a 1 million sold milestone like within the next week or so, then I think it's safe to assume they're in a really good spot. But I think right now it's just like kind of wait and see scenario of like, hopefully it does
to be
well.
clear,
for
it was
them.
their own words that
right.
200K would be.
I know there's also another I forgot which Yacht Club staff member. I don't know if it was said jokingly or not, but they said if this doesn't sell 1 million, I'll be disappointed. And I forgot
I think
exactly.
that was a joke in the context of this is literally the best rated game of the year. Come on.
Yeah, we'll see.
It's quite a lot of numbers.
Just because a game gets like high ratings across the board doesn't mean it's destined to sell well either.
Oh, I know. I was just like, why he said that, which makes sense, or why they said that. I don't know the gender of the person specifically made that statement. So
I have a
But
kind
I
of
mean,
a
do you
I
have
have
more
a
coming up?
relatively
Yeah.
specific comment. I'm going to link an article here. It's from Rebecca Valentine at Kotaku. I love Mina the Hollower's bad joke telling jump scare clown. So this is just one specific thing in the game, but I think it kind of gives an idea of like what you can expect in this game. So one of the NPCs in this game that you can find is this clown guy. I'm actually not sure if he's an animal or a plant or what he is. It's hard to tell based on his sprite. But this game has a little bit of a horror vibe to it. It's kind of or more like a spooky vibe. Like you open up even when you load up the title screen, it shows like a dark, dreary manor with like a lightning bolt in the background or whatever. And there are some like minor jump scares in the game. Like I don't think they're that scary, but I don't, I don't think this is something you need to treat it as if like don't play it in the dark. But there's this clown that's in the game that you're like cutting grass, you're maybe blowing up a wall or something. Or making a jump to a platform somewhere, and then this guy will just pop out of nowhere with like kind of a loud sound effect, and it's like a jump scare in a sense, and he's just like, "Hey, it's me," and then he always follows it up with like a dad joke. And what's the point of this? Nothing. It's just what he does, and you'll run into this guy, and it's very like kind of kooky, and but it's just there for flavor. But there's that's kind of like the tone of what the game is. Not the clown joke stuff, but just sometimes there's just stuff in the game that's just kind of for fun, for flavor. There's all these different like kind of weird, bizarre NPCs in the game, like this. So this is just another thing that you can kind of run into just as you're trying to explore the map. It's not just purely mechanical, like collect upgrades and, find shortcuts. There's some of this kind of just goofy, silly, this character. Like, I even asked like Hayes on this, like, what's this guy's deal? And he's like, honestly, I have no idea. He just does this because he can.
That's said to be my favorite character when I play it. That sounds like.
Sometimes that's the best answer to like the question. It's like, so what does he do? It's like, I told you, he jumps up and tells jokes. That's what he does. Like, no, what does he do? And like, that is what he does.
Good.
So, yeah, cool.
Neat.
Well, thank you, Adam, for kind of taking us to talk at length about Mina the Hollower. I know you hadn't finished it yet.
Yeah, I apologize if I wasn't super thorough. Like, I was hoping Mikhail was here and I haven't finished it, but
yeah.
I think in general, if people are like in the mood for like that like 2D overhead like Zelda style game, like this is definitely, it seems like a great one of those.
And then we already kind of shouted them both out, but Junior does have the written review up on the site. Very glowing review for Mina the Hollower. And then Mikhail does have the technical like feature up as well. Like we said, it's either excellent or amazing depending on where you play it. So sounds like no issues to be had for regardless of where you decide to play the game.
You want an excellent experience or an amazing experience, according to Mikhail?
All right, the second game we have here, I actually don't know who listed this because I wasn't paying attention like an hour ago. We're going to talk about another game that released very recently that has also had, to my purview, like really, pretty glowing critical response and sales response as well. This is 007 First Light from IO Interactive from like the Hitman series fame. So I guess Josh, just take it away. Not an RPG, explicitly, but we don't let that limit us here on this podcast. So
I know I'm a bad RPG player. I'm sorry. But yeah, I'm a big fan of IO Interactive. I really like their Hitman games. I don't always talk about them, but like I on the side, I play Hitman, quite a bit. And I was really curious to when they first announced, hey, our next game is going to be James Bond. If any studio, modern studio can handle it, it's them. They really built up an interesting empire of Hitman games and expansions and whatnot over the years on that, and they've really solidified their case. Like, hey, they're probably the studio to handle this, and it's a really interesting project to kind of play through because I'm not the biggest James Bond fan. I've watched my fair share of James Bond films here and there, but I'm not a connoisseur like our boss Alex Donaldson, who lives and breathes the 007
yeah, he's
series.
British, so
yeah. So it's understandable why he loves it. But in my mind, since I was born in 1990, the James Bond that is in my mind is Pierce Brosnan. Though I've watched a fair bit of the other earlier ones like Timothy Dalton and Roger Moore ones. But when I think of James Bond, I think the Brosnan era, which is like I'm fond of it because those were my like gateway films with like Tomorrow Never Dies and World Is Not Enough, and so forth. And of course, GoldenEye, which like even if you weren't a James Bond fan, if you had an N64, you probably played GoldenEye. And then with Daniel Craig, I like Casino Royale a lot, and that was probably the only Daniel Craig film I liked.
I like Casino Royale and Skyfall. Like the final act of Skyfall for me.
Yeah.
Not that you asked my opinion, just letting it out.
No, you're good. You're good. So but I'm not. I'm not a. Like I said, I'm not a big 007 person, like some people are, and that's fine. And this is a cool. This is a really cool game. Basically it's like the origin story of a new James Bond. As different actors take on the James Bond role. James Bond is like this, super secret spy for the King's Secret Service. And different actors take on that mantle, and so forth. So we have oh my gosh, I already forgot the actor's name for this new James Bond. It's
Nathan Drake.
No, who is it? Nah, I'm already. Damn it, who was it? Actor. I'm already like searching this up. Patrick Gibson. There we go. He is. There's an interesting portrayal of Bond this time around because it's a much younger James Bond compared to many of the ones that are on the big screen, and this is like the origin story of a new James Bond. So the beginning of the game is Bond, who has yet to become a spy, is serving as an air crewman in the military, and his helicopter gets shot down. So the opening prologue of the game is you are basically the only survivor of this attack, this ambush, and MI6 contacts you to try and since you're the only one left, that you need to carry out whatever mission that you're given because this is the only way you're going to survive and get through this, and so forth. So the opening like hour or so is this sort of like more as it's like kind of introducing you to the premise. You are also in this like almost survivalist role of like, hey, you have to go sneak around this enemy military base, to try to gather evidence of the thing that MI6 is looking for. And once you kind of did do all that preliminary work of blending into like the enemy, getting disguise and finding the thing that you need for MI6, you're kind of given this not as a player choice, but like as a interaction between Bond and the MI6 handler. It's like, hey, you need to get out of there. You finished, what we needed you to. We'll extract you out of there. And Bond is like, no, there's survivors here. Like, I'm not going to turn my back on them. And then they're saying you have like less than a million, like a less than 1% chance to do it. Of course, you do it. You're successful, and the whole prologue, ends in a pretty explosive bang. And the whole opening hours, after this whole prologue is you are enlisted to become a participant in this rebooted Double O program underneath the Secret Service. So it's very much new Bond and also a Double O service that's like in its like infant stages where like there's been 6 other recruits beforehand before you. So you're the 7th one. So you get to this like training camp for the Double O program way later than the others, since you're kind of like you weren't planned to join pretty much, but since you kind of beat the odds at that prologue mission, they're gonna give you a shot at this. And one of the first things that really impressed me about this game is the way that how well IO Interactive sort of understands how to blend like that 007 cinematography with interactive gameplay elements, like the training montage that I'm sure, if you've spoken to anyone who's playing this game, they'll probably tell you, like, hey, this has a pretty cool training montage in the way that the game depicts one, where it still has that snappy cinematography of a training montage of, like, hey, you need to get up the pace to the other recruits pretty fast. So they kind of give you this time lapse montage of like let's say like you're doing push-ups, it'll instantly cut to the next scene as you're doing push-ups. You're doing a training course like to get to the flag, um, and then during this like small clip, it cuts to the next thing where you're doing combat training. And it's very seamless in the way that they're um, cutting to these scenes. But during each of these scenes as well, there's like a QTE, like small, very small mini game that you're doing just to indicate that like, hey, you are also have some interactivity of what Bond is doing in this before it flips to the next clip in this training montage, and it just kind of flows seamlessly to one, to illustrate the passage of time, and two, to see like Bond is gradually improving um throughout all of this until like the next story beat to um push the story forward. And then um what once the general preliminary stages are done, um it kind of gets to this flow where you can really start telling this is a game made by IO Interactive, not only using the Hitman Edge engine, but also like sort of their design philosophy. So it's not like Hitman in the sense that like if you're going into this and thinking like you're going to be grabbing disguises and missions are going to be like as free flow as Hitman. It's not exactly that. It's more like Hitman Absolution done right, in the sense that there are still missions that have different ways that you can handle them, whether you go loud or stealthily, but it flows a lot better than like Hitman in the sense that like if you blow your cover, you're not as screwed as you are in Hitman, because obviously Hitman has a very different design philosophy and goal, where Agent 47 is you have to be pretty disciplined in how you maintain cover in Hitman compared to this game. If your cover is blown, let's say like by one guard, for example, once your cover is blown by one guard, your mission is like sort of compromised in like in a pretty repairable way, like in some Hitman missions. I would say that 007 First Light is more like Hitman Absolution done right, in the sense that like even though the missions themselves aren't as non-linear as the prior Hitman games, Hitman Absolution had a more linear design to them, and they were more action heavy, and that's what First Light really leads more into. Where Absolution, a lot of people had some qualms with Absolution because it didn't really feel like a Hitman game in a sense, but this James Bond game isn't a Hitman game, so you don't have the expectations of a Hitman game on this game in that regard. But there is still that flow state of like, hey, you start off this mission undercover, and you can go loud if you want to, but obviously you can do most stages, most missions in a stealthy manner, should you so choose. And if you get into a tussle, into a brawl with like a guard who spotted you, that doesn't mean that like they've notified it like like the half dozen other guards around them, unless like someone radios in reinforcements. So even though you get caught by like one or two people, you can knock them out pretty fast. Like you get into a brawl with them, you smash them into a wall, and then do like your takedown on them, and then once that situation is resolved, you can go on about the mission state in a stealthy manner still. So like your cover isn't blown immediately just because one or two people saw you, which I do like. I do like that First Light is pretty relatively more organic in its the like cover state and disguise state, compared to Hitman, like undercover and being exposed rather in those states. Um, so I do like how it feels way smoother in that regard compared to Hitman. Um, and I guess
I
that
only played like IO's first Hitman because I forget exactly how they released it, because it was kind of like a live service-esque type game. I played it when it like was first playable, just like for like 10 or 20 hours. And I remember feeling like if you blew your cover, it was best just to like restart. Like it almost felt like in the spirit of the game. Like it sometimes you'd still let you through, but it felt like nope, I failed. Time to restart.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, I feel that. And in this game, you really do not have to restart. The only time you restart is like if like you Bond's killed. You can always you don't have like a rating or anything like that, like in Hitman, where like if you didn't do it perfectly, you'll get less rewards. It's like if your cover is blown, it's like it's fine. Even if you get to a full out firefight, I mean, it's still in the spirit of Bond. It's not like Agent 47, right? So the expectations between Hitman and James Bond are totally different. So that's like why Hitman Absolution in some respect failed, because it was a lot of the sequences in Absolution was more like a James Bond game. Looking back now, where you wanted to play a Hitman game, not a third person cover shooter like with full blown out action sequences like Absolution had. And there are definitely some times in First Light where the state of it is like a third person action shooter or cover shooter from the get go. There's like no disguise as you play it like an action third person shooter. And even then, like when you're sneaking through things, you can't even use your gun. You have gadgets that they give you, or that you can equip, and like you're introduced to them, through the Q lab and whatnot. But in these sequences where your cover isn't totally blown yet, you can't even use your if you have any weapons on you, you can't even use that. You can use gadgets and you can use like the environment to like kind of create noise, but you are not allowed to use a gun. You can only use a gun when the screen says "license to kill" up at top, which is a funny nod to like how the James Bond universe works. But it is explicitly has a state where like, okay, the license to kill status is on. That means you are firearms free. Go have at it in that regard. Also, like when you're sneaking around, like I said, there are gadgets like you have the Q watch, which is always on you, which you have like a tactical view that shows you like what is interactable, and there are two resources that you manage with your gadgets. There's like an electrical resource and a chemical resource, and some gadgets use the electrical resource and some gadgets use the chemical resource. Of course, the electrical resource is like turning off cameras or blowing up like certain like electronic appliances, while the chemical one is like, let's say like a dart that makes people feel ill, so like they're distracted because they're not feeling good, or some of them have like mixes like chemical compounds. Like there's like a flash mine where like you fire like a portable mine onto someone and it like blows up. Not like a full on mine explosive to kill them, but like it mixes a certain chemical reaction within the mine to make a whole flashy, puts out a lot of smoke and it blows up, and all that sort of stuff. And as you're going throughout like the levels, you can find like sprays that you can pick up to get their chemical resource, or just like electronical devices to get the electronic resource. Just like you spend resources, gain resources to use your gadgets. There's also different ways, like another different resource to like, if let's say if you got caught by someone, you could like kind of sweet mouth your way, like sweet talk your way out of a situation with someone. Say like, oh, you get caught in like a restricted area, you can have James say something like witty to get him pass by and like seem like he's supposed to be there. Or like for guards, you can like fake surrender and like put your hands up, and as they're approaching you can do a takedown on you. That's like a whole different resource as well, that you can replenish as you disable guards and so forth. So they have like a lot of like tools that you can play around with to get around easier in that regard. And in terms of like movement and stuff, it is very no, some reviews call it like there's an Uncharted element to this, like the Naughty Dog's Uncharted games, and to some element I agree with that, where as you're climbing up like the walls and like trying to sneaking around and so forth, it's very, it definitely reminds you of Uncharted, especially with some of the animations and how you get around those environments. But I think the controls itself is like, it's not, I guess it wouldn't be as, I wouldn't call it as snappy as Uncharted. It's not definitely as like, it's not a platformer focused game in the way that Uncharted was, and that's fine. And I think the cover system is not great in terms of like how it picks which cover, because in order to like run faster in that game or dash, it's mapped to R1, but R1 is also used to like get undercover. So sometimes if you want to like move faster in an environment, sometimes you'll stick to cover because they're mapped to the same button. So that'll make like some tight spaces, like say when you're trying to evade guards, or like in some boss fights, where there's like a lot of like places you can hide, you can use for cover. If you're just trying to move quickly from place to place, you'll stick to cover, and in a lot of places where you didn't want to take cover, you just wanted to move more quickly. Which
I
is
wonder if that was intentional, because it seems like an interesting design decision to have that.
Yeah, it's definitely. I think the one thing that really resonates with me with this game, like compared to the Uncharted games, is I find it very hard to find when to stop playing, because it plays out like a movie, like the Uncharted games did, where there's always something going on the screen where like you're compelled to, you're interested enough to like see this next set piece through, or see this next segment through, because the story has you hooked. There's definitely a turning point in the story where things go south, like the state of like things go south, and the whole objective of the game changes from where it first started. And it's just one of those things where, like, okay, when do I need to stop playing, but I don't know when to stop playing. It's usually I find myself
Yeah, like I
stopping,
want to
like,
get to a good stopping point. There are no
yeah,
good stopping points.
yeah. It's usually like when I'm back in headquarters and I have to like go talk to like my handler like for the next thing. It's like, okay, I think there's a good stopping point. But then there'll be like some long stretches when that doesn't happen. I'm like, okay, when do I stop playing? I don't know. So I think I'm near the end of the game now. I think I'm like almost 10 hours in and like almost at the end of chapter 7. I don't know how long this game is. I just hear it's like maybe like 10 to 15 hours long. But just and if I was younger and had less obligations, I would play this like an Uncharted game in the sense like Uncharted 1 to 3 I played in one sitting in front of like, friends, and we had a good time. Like it was like basically they dedicated most of our day of like they treated it like as like an extended like screening of a movie, and
Mhm.
like I'm playing, so we have like we cook up some stuff, we have like drinks as they're watching me play through like an extended movie. Uncharted 4 was a much longer game, for better or for worse. So I couldn't beat that in one sitting. But this game, if I if I was like back then, I probably could have beat it in one sitting. Um, but so it
Back
goes.
when we had fewer responsibilities and
I know. But
some
I've
other
been
things.
I've been having a blast. I'm very surprised at how well Patrick Gibson has won me over with this new iteration of Bond. It feels like they found a really great um actor for this role. They really nailed. So it's a lot of fun, and I'm really happy for IO Interactive finding success with this, because it's always sort of iffy, especially when you're partnering with Amazon MGM and Delphi for the Bond IP. Obviously, they have certain expectations, and it seems like they're well on their way to um, hopefully this isn't the last Bond game from them. I'd like to see more from IO Interactive in that regard. They've sold me like, yes, you guys are the right people for this for sure.
And I was just double checking because I forget the details, but I remember like there was a little bit of a scare at what is time anymore, like 5-6 years ago, about like them losing the rights to Hitman, but they managed to win them in the end. And I see that First Light is self-published too, so it seems like IO Interactive, despite whatever the struggles that I'm forgetting, back in the mid 2010s, it seems
Also,
like
the
they've got a
recent
hit on their
struggles
hands.
were they were originally the ones that were going to be publishing that one. What's the name of it? That ex Rockstar dude, the game that had all of
Oh,
that.
Mind's Eye.
Yeah, they were publishing that
Yeah, I
until
remember
like
that.
the last minute.
uh, that was, yeah, because they had like the press, they facilitated the press stuff for that. I don't know if they initially like launched as the publisher of that, or if they were already out of it when that game hit the store. Like I forgot the exact timeline of that, but that was definitely, it seems like the right call to move out of that ASAP.
Yeah, I am pretty sure what happened there is they probably had something in the contract where, because of all that yapping, they're like, "You're on your own, buddy."
I can't believe I forgot this. It was Square Enix. And then back in 2017, they went independent and maintained ownership of Hitman IP. So back when Square Enix owned Eidos and that kind of that umbrella of things.
Hmm.
So how far we've come. But thank you, Josh, for a look in at another recent game with 007 First Light. It definitely does seem like you said, kind of like a good like anyone who even has passing interest in Bond. If you got a couple friends, just to come over, an evening or two and you know enjoy
Yeah,
enjoy like
it's a
a good
pretty,
linear game.
yeah, a really fun cast. I'm invested in the story in a way that I thought it wouldn't be.
Mhm. Another You did like this. We were always pointing at the end of May, kind of being when games start releasing again. Another game that just released within the last week is Utawarerumono. Yeah, I knew I was gonna mess that up. Utawarerumono, Past and Present Rediscovered. I practiced and I still messed it up. So this game just released, and James is going to be taking point on this one because he is, I think, the one person on the cast who is most qualified to speak to this series. I think you're basically fully as caught up as you could possibly be for this, final entry.
Yeah. I don't know. I haven't played the one spin-off that one of the characters from Mask of Deception, Mask of Truth is a like detective. That never got localized. I think I own it. I just haven't played it. It's interesting thinking about Utawarerumono now for a number of reasons, because obviously these games came out on like PlayStation back when they got localized a decade ago at this point. It's really, really weird that despite the fact there is a PlayStation and a Switch 2 version of this in Japan, that only the PC version has been localized and probably will be the only one that's localized for like a decent amount of time now. It's yeah.
You think it's just a cost thing?
No, it's because of the publisher that actually did the localization, Shiravoon. They're only a PC publisher.
It's basically Shiravoon just has never, I think, never have done a console like port. They've never. That's just something they've never. Like I'm imagining Shiravoon is probably a pretty small company, and they just don't have those resources to do that. So they just do the PC, Steam localization, and that's it.
Yep.
Yeah.
But so far the game's interesting because despite the fact it's named like a mainline Utawarerumono, the reality is this is Monochrome Mobius 2, which was originally like a spin-off because the Utawarerumono series before now has been a tactical RPG VN hybrid. And I'd say that in like Mask of Deception, Mask of Truth, it was a very good tactical RPG even. So when I reviewed Monochrome Mobius a little under 4 years ago, I actually had a number of issues with the structure of the game, and I didn't think it was a bad first take, but there was like death by 1,000 cuts. And I do know that there have been changes to Monochrome Mobius over the years. They've had some quality of life changes, first and foremost. But I think a lot of my complaints, my critiques still remain valid. So far with this one, I'm not entirely sure how I feel. I think the gameplay is better, but I don't think the structure is that significantly different.
Sorry if this is a green question, but like, what is the gameplay? Like traditional turn-based or
traditional turn-based? It's
okay.
So it's mostly a bog standard turn-based RPG, except there's this one thing called the action ring system, and there's like it's like Trails, where every action you take will have a certain amount of delay, and you can and whatnot. But you and other party members and the enemies are going to be on the action ring in the upper left corner of the screen, and there's 3 action rings. Everyone starts off on the outer ring, which means it takes longer because it's like you're running. It's like you have to run around the ring to get to your next turn again.
Geometry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And to get to a smaller ring, there's a zeal system. And when you get over zeal, you can either use that to immediately act and then use powerful attacks. You get boosted stats. Or you can expend it to immediately go into an early, like a smaller action ring. So you're going to be moving more frequently because it takes less time to go from like having just completed an action to you're up next. Because you're running at the same speed, but because of the fact the ring is smaller, you're going to just be acting more quickly.
Makes sense.
The other way to increase, or well, go to a smaller action ring is if you break an enemy's morale. It's like a stun system, but you only stun them like once. If you stun someone with an attack, you immediately go up a ring. So that's like the main gimmick. There's a new thing they've added here, which I actually do quite like, where basically near the end of the first game, you had access to transformation skills, which kind of added on top of the Overzeal system, where you would transform into a different. I'm not even going to try to pronounce it. I think it's Akuruturuka, I think. Something like that. Where you transform into a giant fucking monster, because that's a thing in Utawarerumono, and you use those skills. And basically, it was very similar to, say, the Grendel in Trails Through Daybreak, where it's like you transform to that. You have a few turns where you can do very powerful attacks, and then you turn back. That's how that works. This one, there's a story reason why you cannot have access to your full kit right from the get-go. And one of them is, hey, usually when people are given these masks and are able to transform like this, they're given very specific training, because the way this power works is it eats away at your very soul. We are going to restrict you, so you have to focus on using it more efficiently. So instead of actually turning into these monsters, you're now summoning an aspect of them, basically like a stand, which is neat. But it also you get access to their abilities earlier on this time, and you're slowly getting access to more and more stuff as you go through. I think the pacing of the combat's a lot better this time. I think that, and maybe it's been too long and I don't remember, but I don't think this was really so much a focus. There's much more of an emphasis on using skills which specific enemy types are weak to. It's not like element, like attacks or anything like that, but if you read descriptions for attacks, it's like, hey, this is more effective against like marine kind. So like if it's a fish, or it'll be more effective against demi-humans, which is like just bog standard guys, or it's more effective against mechanical enemies, so like robots, that sort of thing. And then the main thing this game has fixed versus Monochrome Mobius, that was my major issue with Monochrome Mobius, is that there was both a bloat in terms of the skills that you used. And so, especially near the end of the game, like the earlier skills you would almost never want to use, because they were just weaker than your later ones, and you could very easily just replenish your like MP between battles. They've balanced things now where you're periodically getting upgrades to earlier skills, and you can actually toggle between like the base form of a skill and a stronger version. And they've also have an optional. They should have made it the default, an optional new layout for how your skills are laid out. And the way this works is fascinating, because instead of it just being, hey, this is based off the newest one and it's just a list that you scroll, the new optional layout for skills are grouped into what they actually do, and there's even blank spots for where you will eventually get new skills. So you can kind of tell what your full kit is going to end up looking like just by process of elimination of, oh, there's a blank spot here. This blank spot is where these types of skills are. So I know like some basic attributes about this skill I'm going to get later, even though I don't know what exactly it does now.
That's funny.
But it's nice because it makes it so that like navigating your skills makes a lot more sense, because it's like, oh, these skills are on this second page on this section of the skills, instead of like just kind of bumbling down to the same spot every time. It's like, okay, no, I know where I'm going to want to move my cursor depending on what I want to do. And it just works a lot better than Monochrome Mobius, even if it still has some of the same issues of like button bloat. But the framing definitely helps. I can't say too much about the story yet. It kind of feels like an inverse of Monochrome Mobius, where Monochrome Mobius, I'd say the first 10 hours of that game had the most interesting story stuff, and then it kind of just treads its wheels for another 30 hours.
Okay.
This one is more of a slow burn, where it's like, okay, I've played 12 hours. I don't know anything about what's going on with the story yet. It's kind of treading it.
Is it a direct follow-up to Monochrome Mobius, or is it like set sometime after? Because I remember the Mobius had like some sort of cliffhanger.
So Mobius had a cliffhanger, and it might as well be a direct follow-up. It said it technically happened several months after Monochrome Mobius, but nothing of note has happened in that time.
Interesting.
But it's really, really funny how like you start up this game and it immediately just starts throwing all of these character names from Monochrome Mobius. And it's like, my dude, you expected me to have replayed Monochrome Mobius or some shit? That came out 4 years ago. I understand all the characters from Utawarerumono, like the previous games of that, but I don't remember any of the Arshalon fucking characters. It's kind of... It's very much the vibes I get from this game is like a Cold Steel 2 or a Cold Steel 4 or a Trails from Reserve, where it's like it's very obviously reusing a lot of assets and building upon the previous game and the Trails series arc, and expects, because usually those games are like a year or 2 years like gap between them, that you're going to remember all these characters. It's been almost 4 years. It's taking me a while to get caught back up.
And also, like the game's titles don't really indicate the direct connection, right? Because
yes, but anyone that played Monochrome Mobius would not be surprised. Would know. Because first off, Monochrome Mobius didn't sell very well at all. So the only people that played it were people that were already Utawarerumono fans. And that's the other thing. I kind of criticized Monochrome Mobius, where it's like, you could start here, but it's obvious that they're tying in something. And I haven't gone to what they're actually tying into yet, because like one of the cliffhanger things is like, okay, this is not just a prequel, it's obvious, or an intraquel. There's obviously more stuff going on here. I haven't gotten to any of the actual like delivery for that yet, but it is worth noting that they're positioning this as the conclusion to the Utawarerumono series, even though this is still technically a interquel / prequel to the original trilogy. So there's something that's going to happen, and I'm already hearing stuff about like a seed of time. So it's like, okay, there's probably some time shenanigans that they already kind of teased in the previous game, but like realistically, it's like people that want to pick this up. First off, you need to play Monochrome Mobius, but you also, I would absolutely recommend playing the original Utawarerumono trilogy, which is another 150 hours minimum.
It's also just baked into the title too. It's Utawarerumono, past and present, rediscovered.
Yep.
lots of context clues. Here. I have a dumb question. Did you see the Ukes logo when booting up this game?
I don't think so. It kind of just like immediately opens into the opening movie when you boot it up. Like there's no like screens or anything like that. But
and they saw like no Ukes copyright or anything in the main menu. I'm sure you probably didn't like look for it or anything. I'm just kind of curious. That's cool.
But yeah, it's like I'm enjoying it well enough. It's just one of those things where I'm still early enough that I don't really feel comfortable making hard and fast statements like right away. One thing I will do is I actually have a good screenshot to show what I meant by the new layout for stuff. I'm going to post this in the voice channel chat. This is what I mean by there being open spots in the layout to show you where your other skills would show up.
Okay, so yeah, for people listening, so it's basically posted a screenshot where it's like a 3x3 skill layout of like, say, like, you know, flash slash water impact, and then I assume like, you know, there's a certain pairings of skills with like a similar attribute. Within this 3x3 grid of skills, there are 2 blank spots in this 3x3 to show you that this character will eventually probably learn skills of a similar attribute, or you can use context clues based on how this game, you know, pairs up its skills and orders them to kind of suss out, hey, this character will probably learn skills that either have similar attributes or something in between that, because you know the layout of how to categorize them, which is funny. So there's it's just like missing blank skill slots in that.
It's like, again, I don't think it's a bad thing. I think that's a neat way of handling it. It's just like you don't really see that, so it's interesting. But yeah.
Okay. I'm very curious. This, like, you know, this is, I have to imagine like this project is one of the last holdouts before the Ukes, you know, took over Aqua Plus. So I'm kind of curious to see like where Aqua Plus goes from here. If there are any other like legacy projects that they had on hand that they have yet to release before Ukes took over.
I'm curious
too, guys.
I'm curious what their next project would even be, considering it's like, okay, whatever IPs do they even have? They have Dungeon Travelers, which you can't be sure that can release on Steam. So
Yeah.
they've got Two Heart, which you can't be sure that can release on Steam. They got lucky this time, but considering what it is, it's the same problem. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. We'll see. They're kind of like in a weird spot because, like, it seems like they definitely want to revisit some of their legacy IP, and seems like they're more open to helping them with that. Who really knows? And I think Shirafun should stop fucking around and release White Album 2. West.
Yeah.
I could finally get Peak Fiction back. That's all it takes.
But yeah, thanks for the check-in, because I feel bad because, like, the prospect of this release, I just don't know if it's gonna perform well, because you do need knowledge of all the other prior games before going to this game. Just, definitely like a Trails S problem.
It's also worth noting that for anyone that was an Utawarerumono fan in the West back in the day, they were on consoles. They were on PlayStation.
Exactly.
And it's like, sure, I'm sure a bunch of them have played the PC versions now, but I literally had a conversation with a follower on Blue Sky the other day where it's like they've been beyond frustrated about the fact that there's just not been, because there are Switch versions of the original trilogy, and there's a Switch 2 version of this, obviously, in Japan. And it's like, why did those not get localized? I literally had a conversation with Alan previously of NIS America at Tokyo Game Show 2024, where it was like, hey, they're showing off the Switch version of this. You guys should probably do this. And it's like, oh, there might be issues with the script. And it's like, I understand where you're coming from, but I think in this specific case where Shirafun used both your and Atlas's script for the PC versions, and Zon 1, by your guys' own admission, was based off of Atlas's script for Mask of Deception, they, like, Aqua Plus owns the script. You could go to them and be like, hey, we would like to publish these in the West, and that's basically free money. They didn't do it, but it's like, come on, nobody did those?
Yeah, I just don't know. It sucks because there's like no certainty at all whether a console release is ever going to be in the cards of the future for these as well. It's like the only thing you can rely on is Shirafun doing the PC version, but that's it. There's no hint, there's no tease, there's no indication that these will come to other platforms at all. That sucks. There's not even like a consistent precedent of the modern releases to indicate that.
Yep.
And that covers the main 3 all new releases that we wanted to cover for the game section of the podcast. I did just eke out like a 10-minute section here to follow up on Zero Parades, the Zum game that released in late May that we talked about. I'd gotten about halfway through when we had a podcast last week. I have finished the game, but I'm at a point where it's like, here are going to be my final thoughts, but also it's a game that is very critical that you don't, like, I can't spoil the story. So there's probably not a whole lot I can say here, but I do want to just kind of give some final thoughts about, how I feel about this game, how I feel like it compares to Disco Elysium, what I recommend it, things like that. So I will say that I think last week I talked about all of the premise and all the setup and how it's different from Disco and how I felt like it didn't have quite as strong of a hook at the beginning. I will say that it definitely ramps the more you play. It's the sort of thing where in a game like Disco Elysium or even Esoteric Ebb, you kind of know what the motivation is from the outset. Where here it's a little bit more nebulous, and you just kind of have to talk to people, and you just kind of have to let the threads kind of unfurl and unveil themselves kind of naturally before you really get sucked in. But I will say that eventually it does happen. I think a lot of the character writing is really strong. There are certain people that I was rooting for, and how the game is set up is that you eventually, and this is not a spoiler, you eventually want to form like a crew for your final heist not really heist, but your final objective at the climax of the game, and based on the actions that you take or what sort of spy you are, you'll have some limitations, but also some choice in terms of like who you want to bring. So like I ran into like one of the main characters that you might run into. Her name is Yana, and she's like a 16-year-old like street urchin, like a kind of like an Aladdin type. Um, where she has no spy training, but she has all the street smarts, so we're gonna get her on board. And then you meet another older spy that is like someone that you knew 5 years ago, but you haven't kept in touch with. He's on board for one last mission, and then there's a few others and things like that. And I will say that when I was playing through the climax of the game, I was literally like gripping the controller like pretty hard because it like the music, the pacing, the story, the intensity, it actually kind of got like, oh no, what's gonna happen? Did I do the right things? Like actually like the kind of the hallmark of a well-written game where you actually like where it has like the illicit side, genuine emotional response. A little bit on the downside, I will say that in the beginning of the game, when you pick what sort of spy you are, I forget what you call it, like thoughts of action versus thoughts of like intelligence. I forget the game has specific names for them. And there's certain things that your character just is not good at. So like there's certain routes that you're like, I'm not even going to bother trying to, you know, intimidate this person because I have terrible stats there. So I'm going to find a different route. And that actually feels like good in a way. Like it feels like true role playing. I will say that the game kind of loses its impact a little bit. If you don't remember, in Disco Elysium, well, you end up getting a lot of the cosmetics and like the thoughts that you internalize that eventually you can use to boost your other stats. And eventually you end up with so many cosmetics that what happens is you'll be in a dialogue chain and it'll say like, in order to pass this check, you need high poetics or whatever. And what you're kind of encouraged to do once you have enough like gear or items on hand is that you back out of the dialogue chain, you go through all of your gear, and there's no way to like set loadouts or like have it like auto equip to prioritize certain stats. At least not that I found. And you're like, all right, I need high poetics. Let me just scroll through all my hats. Okay, that's the best hat. Let me just scroll through all my shirts. Okay, that's the best shirt. Okay, let me scroll through all my shoes. And then eventually you can kind of trivialize not any, but most checks. So, and if it's kind of like what Adam was talking about with like that grinding thing, where it's like it's a little bit self-inflicted because you could, and the developers have said that they kind of want you to fail, and some outcomes are locked behind failing checks. But when you see something and it's like you've got to roll, a double six here in order to win, like I'm going to back out and then equip the better gear and then go back in, and then it's like, all right, now you only have to roll a four, like, and it ends up kind of breaking the flow a little bit. It's like I almost wish that there were fewer cosmetics. Either that or I wish that the skill checks were higher.
Real quick,
Go
I
ahead.
reviewed the original Disco Elysium, when that released 6 years ago or whenever it was, and this was like, I scored it a 9. Like, I really, really, really like this game, but this was actually a very similar thing on one of my criticisms. Is like you're just kind of doing this sort of wardrobe swapping to like raise certain stats for certain checks, and by the end of the game, you're just doing that a bunch. It's like I don't know if this is the best, but
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a minor criticism. Like it wasn't too bad, and it felt good to be like, hell yeah, I'm glad I completed that side quest because it gave me these spiked bracers that gave me +2 resolve, so I can like intimidate people or whatever. And then like those would be very useful for a lot of checks. Like so that felt good, but just the usual like you don't know when you go into a dialogue because there's 15 different stats basically in 3 different categories. So you don't really know like which checks are going to come up. You can't really prepare for them. So you'll just have a dialogue with some character and then you'll be like, "Oh, I need to have higher personality. So let me back out, equip all my like flashy gear and then do it." And then that ends up becoming like the gameplay loop as much as I don't like that term later in the game. Unless you really are like truly like, nope, I'm role playing. I'm not good at that. I'm gonna roll this check. I'm gonna fail it. I'm gonna see where it goes. And if someone has like the I don't know, almost like the wits or like the determination to not succumb to the temptation of let me change out my gear to give me the best possible chance to pass the check, um, then all the credit to those people. Like I was saying, I almost wish there was like maybe a smaller number of gear items, but maybe that were more impactful, rather than like, oh, I have 8 items that all give me +1 or plus or -1 of different stats. Go ahead.
I feel like how some RPGs kind of get around this sort of issue. I'm actually thinking of like Outer Worlds, and other Obsidian games probably do this also, where like you're going out into a mission on some planet somewhere, and you can bring along like your allies that boost certain stats or whatnot, for like certain, like hacking or lockpicking or stealth or whatever in those games. And when you're out on a mission, it's like, oh, you need a certain level of hacking to get through this door or whatever. And it's like, oh, I brought the wrong person for that, but it's like too late to change now. You cannot change because you're like, you dispatched. So it's like you can only change these stat swap. In this case, it's like characters and not equipment, but you can only change out those stat swapping things like at certain points. Versus in these games, some games you can just change them out whenever you want. So it's more like free to do that, where in other games it's like, well, you could go all the way back, switch out your characters or your stats and come all the way back here, but that's, an extra burden. So it's like, I'm talking, I guess functionally speaking, like the hurdle it is, like that you have to, the inconvenience that you have to like switch out your stats probably should be higher than just opening a menu. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because usually it's like, go ahead, Josh.
I had a perfect analogy for this. Adam will understand.
Okay.
Adam, when you're fusing a demon in Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne,
which version of
PS2 versus PS2 version versus HD remastered, back then it was all randomized on which skills you got when you're fusing a demon. In HD remaster, you could choose which skill. Back then, you had to kind of live with it. You were balancing between getting, if you wanted like the quote unquote perfect skills on a demon, you would have to spend the time
reloading
to manually go between back one menu and forward one menu to get to see what skills you got on that fused result. Versus an HD remaster, you could just like pick out whichever one you want, and it was that easy, just a few seconds. Versus maybe 10 minutes.
Yeah, and in the PS2 version, if you're trying to get 8 skills, because you usually have 8 skill slots, and you want like 8 specific skills, and sometimes you're effectively re-rolling, and you got 7 of the 8 that you want. Like, do you just accept it? Like, close enough.
Versus, I'm sorry.
You never know. You never know when your roll is going to get that good again.
Yeah.
Where in Zero Parades, there's 2 cases. If it's a standard check, usually you can just like, you're in a dialogue tree and the bottom option is always like, see you later or whatever. And then like, so I'll have an option like, oh, that one has a skill check. See you later. I literally stand in front of that NPC, change my whole outfit and say hello again. Now I'm ready to like convince you otherwise. Now there
I'm just imagining like you have to do this skill check. Like, oh, let me go get my best clothes. You put on like a bartender outfit. It's like, oh man, here's the next skill check. You put on like a punk rocker outfit. It's like, oh god, here's the final check.
That's basically what it is.
Everything's on the table. You take off your punk rocker outfit for your clown outfit. It's like I better get this the stat roll.
Now there are like checks that are in red text, and it says like you only get one chance for this. But then the only difference there is instead of leaving the dialogue, you just load a save, right? Like it's really functionally the same. Like you save before the talk, so you almost end up. And I completely admit that this is self-inflicted. A person of stronger fortitude could just roll with the punches, but to me, whenever I met a new character, I religiously like save, talk to them, realize what I need to do, like what stats I need to convince them or get things to go my way, reload, equip the better outfit, and then talk to them. So. But I will say that really only manifests in like the back third or fourth of the game once you have, because up until that point you just don't have enough gear to like really matter. Like, oh, I don't have enough. There's nothing I can really do to push this in my favor, so I just got to roll with it. But later in the game, when you're trying to like when you're like wrapping up all the loose ends and you're in like pretty consequential quests, you're like really encouraged. Like, I don't want to fail this check, so I'm gonna reload my save. I'm gonna save scum and I'm gonna do it. So, but it is self-inflicted. I fully admit that.
I think the swapping the gear stuff out, like that feels like even like a lower like save scumming is one thing, but I think just like swapping gear out to maximize your stats, that just feels like almost intended, right? Like that's the whole point of
Right,
having
yeah.
gear. Where save scumming is not
So I'm not exactly
necessarily
sure,
intended.
so I'm not sure like exactly how you would like fix that because it's kind of like something where it's like, okay, that just comes with that design. I think it would be fewer cosmetics with stronger benefits rather than having like you have 15 different shirts, each with a minor little benefit. Like, no, just give me like four, and then they all have like a really strong benefit. Like, so you really feel like, hell yeah, I completed a quest, and now I have a shirt that gives me +4 Technoflex. Now I can really do well on those checks, but only with this shirt. So maybe that would be better. I'm not sure. I will say, just as one final thought, that there were two moments in the writing later in the game where I was like, oh shit, like in terms of like the game and the story providing enough crumbs for certain people to like, if just because you can see a twist coming, that fact on its own doesn't necessarily mean it's good or bad, because you want your twist to be like breadcrumbed appropriately without being too obvious or too out of left field. Like you can swing too far in one direction or the other.
It's a fine balance because you don't want your twist to kind of feel like bullshit and come out of nowhere, but you don't want it to be like so telegraphed where it's like, well, that was obvious.
Yeah, and I think the game really does strike that balance at the end with some of the revelations. And I will say that at the end of the game, there's enough key choices made right at the end that you're kind of like, I want to do that ending sequence again and like do a bunch of different other choices and see what because like you want to make sure you get the best possible ending or whatever. And is the sort of thing where it's like when I beat it, I was like, I think that ending was pretty good, kind of, but maybe not. Maybe I can do better. Maybe if I made a different choice and that would go in my favor.
And even outside of just the RPG brain, like gotta get the optimal ending or whatever, just like I wonder, like almost like a curiosity, like I wonder how that could have gone had I done other things or whatever. So
Mhm. So it does make me want to replay Disco. 'Cause I never played Final Cut and I only ever played through it once. So I don't know if I will, but I was kind of looking like, do I have Disco installed? And then I realized I had played Adam's copy from like the old version of Steam Family Share. Like, oh, I don't have it installed, but now I have new Family Share, so I could play a copy. But yeah, so uh, final thoughts there. So, and then obviously we didn't have him on the podcast, but just one more shout out to Hayes's review on the site from last week. With that, we had a pretty beefy games talk section this week, and we have a pretty beefy news section as well. Though I guess, but before we get into that, I have just two things to highlight here. One is that Junior, who did the Mina the Hollower review, did attend Bitsummit last week over in Japan. He's covered this for us 2 or 3 years now, and usually it's like a kind of an indie expo of sorts that has like a different flavor compared to like what we get on over in the West in like PAX or Gamescom and things like that. And he kind of put together like his kind of quick like rapid fire thoughts on like 7 or 8 different titles that he was able to either go hands on or see in person over at Bitsummit. So if you look for Bitsummit 2026 roundup on the RPG site, you can see kind of like a bunch of work in progress Japanese indie games that he was able to go and see over the last week. And then Adam, we have this feature from a contributor, it might be his debut here. I should have brought this up when James was talking about past and present rediscovered. Able to interview Suga Munamitsu, Blake Simmons.
like
Do you have any context
Simons,
for this preview?
this is actually his
Simons?
second.
It's one M, so it's Simmons or Simons. Simons, I guess.
This is actually his second interview that he's posted for us. A while ago he did actually.
I must just be forgetting the first.
Well, he did. He actually did the first one was kind of a smaller one. Well, not a small name, but the interview wasn't a big interview. It was for the Yuji Horii of Dragon Quest. But that interview was more like a panel interview, which is just kind of inherently a little bit limiting. I believe he actually had this interview set up with Aquaplus and with Suga on this. Well, he's the writer of Utawarerumono, and he was actually looking for a place to like platform it. I think he actually reached out to James, and James was like, "Hey," Or no, I think he probably reached out to Alex, but Alex is sometimes not very
Yeah,
responsive.
he reached out to Alex, didn't get a response, so he reached out to me, and since he know that I could push the issue.
Yeah, and then then James pointed it to me, and then I'm pushing Alex like, hey, I think we should do this. It's like a niche series, but kind of right in our wheelhouse, and
Yeah, I figured if push come to shove that you could have just like forced the issue yourself and then like figure it out later. But I was like, okay.
The interview itself, it's a little bit it's a little bit amusing how straightforward some of his reasoning is for why he why he writes, or like how Utawarerumono.
I wanted a story with kind of.
Yeah, I just like the ears. So I wanted to have a story with characters with animal ears, because animal ears are cool. And like that literally is answer.
Yep.
And there's like a question like, how long does it take you to write these stories? And like it doesn't really provide, honestly, admittedly, it doesn't provide a lot of like context or insight. It's like about a year and a half. You asked. That's how long it takes.
Yeah, certain people have different levels of like, I don't know, poetry to their answers, but sometimes there's just the straightforward candidness can be kind of refreshing as well than someone like talking around the answer. Just like, nope, that's my answer, year and a half. But yeah, so we have that interview as well up on the site with Muramitsu of Aqua Plus. Munamitsu, my apologies.
And another one of the questions was like, how did you join Aqua Plus? And he's like, well, I quit my last job, and then I asked a friend, and he recommended me. Okay.
And then I applied, and then I got the job.
Yeah, like I applied, interviewed, got the job.
So we have a handful of headlines bundled up here. We knew that this was coming, though we didn't know the specifics. All of the outcomes of the Dragon Quest 40th anniversary stream. So we were expecting to get, or I don't know about expecting, but hoping to get news about Dragon Quest 12. Yuji Horii had, kind of teased a few things. We were kind of anticipating that we might hear something about a Switch 2 port of Dragon Quest 11. Spoilers, that did get announced. And then a few other things that were a little bit more of a surprise. But let's start with Dragon Quest 12. There's a fair bit we could chew on here. So Dragon Quest 12 was first shown off a while ago. Let me actually get a date. 2021, Dragon Quest 12, The Flames of Fate announced with kind of a very thin amount of information, just some
basically just a logo,
some notes that it was going to have a different vibe. It was going to get more mature. Obviously, this was in the era of around the time Final Fantasy 16 was in dev, and it was also taking a different tact from also under Square. So there was a lot of like, what does that mean? What is it? How's the game going to turn out? Dragon Quest 11 was great. Is this game going to be a huge departure? And then a few things here and there throughout the years, but no real big follow up after that point until this week, where we learned that Dragon Quest 12: The Flames of Fate has basically rebooted development and been renamed. It is now Dragon Quest 12 Beyond Dreams. So it's got a new tagline. And then we did get a first look at it, a very, very brief. They talked about, because of the development issues and the restarting that they've done, it's still going to be a ways out. And we got what we were left with basically was just an initial rendering of the game and a look at the game's protagonist.
Ron 12.
What do we think? What do we think about Hero 12?
This whole event was like a weird one, because to celebrate the 40th anniversary, we're talking to you about how we rebooted the development of this thing that's already been in development hell. So you'll have to wait even more to whenever we'll hear about this again. And it's kind of a weird thing, because in some respects they're playing it safe again, because Dragon Quest 12, The Flames of Fate, was supposed to be this radical departure, in some ways more mature, in some ways more darker, compared to Dragon Quest, relative to like the Dragon Quest series, which is very, friendly on the eyes. Obviously, there are dark themes, or things that are there are dark things that happen in the Dragon Quest games, but it's never like the central core ethos of those games. Even though there are definitely some tragic things that happen within those games.
Remember when the Dragon Quest V protagonist is enslaved for 10 years?
God.
And apparently, during those 10 years, his little like childhood girlfriends like just have adventures.
No,
And
I was gonna say it's like, do you think they just kind of just changed the direction because of like the passing of like Akira Toriyama and the composer? Because the way that the trailer ended, it's like Yuji Horii just kind of like assured that that everything was done by them. You know, it's like
I don't know. I think it's more of a restructure of Square Enix to try to like betting safer equals probably more reliable profits. Because think about it like this: like Toriyama and Sugiyama are still both like in this game. Like their work on this game has been done for some years now, even after their passing, and their work is still going to be in this game because that's how long ago their responsibilities were fulfilled for this game. You know, I don't think it's because since Toriyama passed, they changed the whole, you know, development pipeline of this game.
I'm not an artist, but I imagine like so Toriyama. That's his studio was Bird Studio, right? So I'm assuming like he probably comes up with tons of character designs and like, okay, here are Dragon Quest protagonists, here are, heroines and enemies and whatnot. And, at this point, obviously, since his passing, some of how those are implemented might be different. But I'm sure he has like tons of work that he has that they can use, even though it's been a few years since his passing.
Like think about it, it's like Atlas still uses Kaneko's designs for demons, even though he no longer works at the company. And continues to use them because they have ownership of it. It's not like Kaneko has any. It's not like Kaneko has any sort of responsibilities or influence over how the development pipeline of those games are.
If you told me that Toriyama years ago made a lot of different character designs for future Dragon Quest games, like here's Dragon Quest 12, here's maybe some characters you can use or whatever. Like I'm sure there's some to work with. Like obviously that can't be limitless, but I'm sure there's some.
Definitely, like in terms of like, sure, like if you wanted input on a certain thing, maybe. But I in terms of like influencing the entire development pipeline, definitely not. But in terms of like what was shown, it's like I don't know. It's so little footage, and like it's good to see that like there's a proof of concept in the same way that like Kingdom Hearts 4 technically has footage out there that's a proof of concept. Like yes, there's definitely could be gameplay footage. Who knows? But in terms of like
but it's just like at this point, it's still kind of like a nothing burger, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, the only thing that the internet is chewing on is the fucking protagonist design. And
and some people speculating whether or not him and that like dragon dude are technically
the lizard dude. Yeah,
that seems to be the popular theory. Is that he? So
I can see it.
First of all, the game is called Beyond Dreams. What we learned is that this guy has like weird dreams, and he has a very tired look on his face, which makes sense if he can't sleep. And maybe in his dreams he becomes a lizard or something.
Maybe
I don't know.
He is the lizard, and
what if it's a literal Dragon Quest?
Look, if the whole deal with this guy's design is because he's fucking sleep deprived, then okay, I can get behind that.
I've actually seen some mutuals on social media at first being like, that design's kind of weird, and then like pretty quickly getting to like, let my sleepy boy sleep because he needs to sleep.
Yeah, like I kind of hope that Square sticks with that design because I think it's like look, I love our Dragon Quest protagonist designs, but I'll be the first to admit that like they are usually some spin-off of Gohan or Trunks in it, more often than not. So this being a pretty far departure over past Dragon Quest protagonist designs, I think it's funny looking. I think it's kind of stupid, but I am more accepting of it over a safer design. Like sure, let him be a little bit scrawny, a little bit chopped. And also just having he looks like he has like a marine regulation haircut with like a wig, a wig on top of him. But that's okay because it's different. Now, in terms of like the lizard form of this dude is also kind of doesn't look the best, but I'm not sure I agree with like some hair around the horn where the horns are out. That looks kind of weird, but sure, like I could get behind that. Like I don't know if it's gonna. Maybe I'll vibe with it more if I actually get to play it and see how the story develops.
To be clear, we don't know if the lizard guy and the human guy are the same
Right.
person. That just seems to be the common
It's
speculation.
strong evidence.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so-
strong evidence. Like they have like a similar sword,
Similar clothes, yeah.
Yeah, and they also showed off like another character, like a woman in it, and she seems cool. She seems neat. But
We
in
don't
terms
know
of like
anything
who
about
knows how this game's gonna end up? Like I don't know. Like I was more excited for the other Dragon Quest game that they showed off, and that had no gameplay footage.
Yep.
So,
Mhm.
and the other
Mhm.
game that they announced is a new entry in the Dragon Quest Monsters series, Dragon Quest Monsters: The Withered World, and this borrows characters from a Dragon Quest game that I haven't played. So I'll let Adam speak to it. I think it's Dragon Quest V.
Well, like if Dragon Quest Monsters 3 was pretty much like Dragon Quest 4 Monsters version, because it had like Sorrow from Dragon Quest 4 and whatnot. So it's like, is it canonically related to Dragon Quest 4? Like these sorts of games, like it's not really like a sequel or a in that story.
Right,
it's just
right.
kind of like a
And I didn't mean to
reinterpretation of
imply
it.
that it was.
No, I'm not correcting you. I'm just saying like
Yeah.
it's more just like a reinterpretation of that story with those characters. But if Dragon Quest Monsters 3 was basically like Dragon Quest 4 Monsters, then this one is like Dragon Quest 5 Monsters. And it stars like kind of like the younger versions of Nera and Bianca. And apparently Deborah, the other I guess literally wife candidate, is also in the game somewhere, although we haven't seen her design yet. But yeah, it's just
Preferred by Hori, like saying,
Yeah.
oh yeah, the boy like Hori like had a follow up post on social media about the Dragon Quest Monsters: The Withered World announcement. He's like, oh yeah, Deborah's going to show up as well, of course.
And for those
Okay.
who might not be aware, the reason why that's like notable is in the original version, it was just like the two girls, and then Deborah was added in like the DS version, and later versions stayed there. So like some people might argue she's not a real character because she's added later, but I actually know a lot of people who actually like her the best anyway. So she's there.
alright.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was quite a debate back then. People say that she's not canon. Oh
Yeah.
my god.
But
So dumb.
yeah, the kind of the context is like I tried to joke about this earlier, but apparently this more or less, if you had to fit it on the timeline, which again it's not going to perfectly fit on any timeline because it's more of a spin-off reinterpretation. It's like during those like adolescent years when the child protagonist is enslaved. So while he's spending this 10-year like time skip in Dragon Quest V, this is apparently what these two characters were up to. I say that kind of half jokingly, half not, but like that's kind of the framing around it. I don't know if we really know much else. I've seen some cute fan art of like these two characters,
Hell yeah.
bonding and like capturing like a little saber cub or whatever.
Yeah, I'm very excited because Dragon Quest V is fucking amazing, and these two characters are really good.
Still the best Dragon Quest game in my opinion. Well,
Yeah, but they also mentioned like they also teased like hey like this next Dragon Quest Monsters game, even though we don't have any gameplay footage to show, it's probably being released before Dragon Quest 12, and then as of the day of this recording earlier today, it got like an ESRB rating already.
Wait, didn't they confirm it? Did they confirm a date, Brian? Is it this year?
I don't
I
think it-
don't
If
think
it has
I
an
don't have a
ESRB
date.
rating, it's
I don't
probably
think.
going to be this year. So I mean,
Maybe I made that up,
Yeah.
but I thought
But yeah, like it's also just like it's just weird that it already has an ESRB rating and like has an ESRB description up and all that stuff. And I don't know what that means in terms of like how close it is to release, but it's just bizarre. Like Square works in mysterious ways to like will Dragon Quest 12 even be out by the 45th anniversary? No one can give you a good answer to that. Like who knows?
Let's see. So we talked about Dragon Quest 12 Beyond Dreams, Dragon Quest Monsters: Withered World, which I believe is just Dragon Quest Monsters 4 in Japan.
yeah, that's similar to 3. I think I called it 3 earlier. It's technically not called Dragon Quest Monsters 3 in English, even though that is what it is. What was it even called? The Dark Prince? Yeah, the Dark Prince
Dark Prince.
was the English subtitle.
Hopefully it's better than that. Like the Dark Prince is like it's okay, but it's kind of on the weaker side of the Dragon Quest Monsters games. I'm hoping this one, since we finally have Dragon Quest V characters, this better be the best fucking Dragon Quest Monsters ever.
Do you think the next Dragon Quest monsters will be Dragon Quest 6 monsters? That's actually a joke because that's sort of how Dragon Quest monsters started. So
that'd be funny. That'd be a really funny circle. Like, oh, we're back to where we started.
We'll get another remake of the original Dragon Quest monsters because it's like it makes sense. They made a remake of Dragon Quest 7 on the 3DS. It would make so maybe we'll get another remake of Monsters 1.
And I guess we're also sort of expecting some sort of re-release remake of 4, 5, and 6 because Tori sort of teased that. Talking about Dragon Quest 7's remake as well.
Yeah, again to refresh memories, what he said was he was asked like why did 7 come out first? And he kind of just said, well, it was done first. And so that implies that the other ones are in the works.
Okay, Hori. All right.
Classic Hori move.
And then I did mention, like, in the lead that Dragon Quest XI is getting a Switch 2 version. It will be on September 24th, and I believe it is a key card.
And also, like, no save transfer, no
upgrade path,
which kind of sucks, like, especially for a long game like that. Like I know there's some issues with like this is the person that come to mind, like the Xenoblade Chronicles Cross update to Switch 2. Like I know that update has some performance issues, especially in handheld mode, but at least you can like load your save file and it's just right where you left you, right? And there's an upgrade path. So
I think the main problem is that for whatever reason, the way that Switch 2 versions of games work is that if you want to have an upgrade path, it has to be a Switch 2 edition. And if it's a Switch 2 edition, if you want a physical release, it has to be the actual game card. Or it has to be like a code in a box, because that's what they did for FF Tactics. There was an upgrade, but the physical was just for Switch 2 was just a code in a box in the regions that they did a physical release. So it's just weird shit. And I think that's also the same reason why they were able to do a Switch 2 edition for Romancing Saga 2. It's like, we're not going to release it physically again, so we can do the upgrade path.
Is this just going to be a thing throughout the Switch 2's life cycle of how complicated these things are?
Yeah, probably.
Great. Great. I thought it was only going to be it's maybe like the first 2 years while people are still sussing it out, but it feels like as time goes on, it's just going to be a thing that's inherently in the system.
The other big announcement this week, a little less to chew on here, but maybe a more surprising announcement, is CD Projekt Red has announced that The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt is going to get a new expansion next year. So Wild Hunt Songs of the Past will release on PS5, Xbox, and PC in 2027. We didn't really get a lot of details on this. Like we got a key art, we got a tiny bit of footage. But
I swear I saw this just on social media. Is this being developed by Fool's Theory, or like in partnership with them?
It's in partnership with Fool's Theory, yeah.
Okay, and Fool's Theory was the one they were behind the Thaumaturge, right?
Witcher 1 remake,
and the Witcher 1 remake, which I'm assuming is still a thing. So, yeah.
But outside of that detail, there's really not a lot here, which I think is fine. They're just saying like, "Hey, we're working on it." So, because there was some rumors of this, but it's a little bit unorthodox. But I don't think anyone's saying like, "How dare they?" Like, this is pretty awesome. Like, I was actually wondering like, maybe I should replay the Witcher series.
I guess several important things they did share in terms of like just even though there's no trailer is one. This is not coming to the previous gen. It's only the current gen PS5 and Xbox consoles, and of course PC. And two, they're updating the system requirements. So people who can run The Witcher 3 now, if they're on the lower end, they should think about either upgrading, or of course, if they're a console, consider getting the current gen if they want to play this new expansion. But like, you're gonna need the higher specs to run this expansion. So if you're on the lower end right now, be wary of that.
So yeah, the other bullet points are kind of like Songs of the Past is the third expansion. It'll launch in 2027. It's being co-developed with Fool's Theory. You will still play as Geralt of Rivia. So it's not like this is not like an integral between 3 and 4 where you play as Ciri. It's like nope, this is Geralt. Yeah. So looking forward to that.
It's kind of weird because I felt like Blood and Wine was like a pretty conclusive
It is. It
expansion.
is.
Yeah. So I just hopefully this makes sense. I'm releasing it like so past that, you know.
Yeah. They also did announce I knew that Witcher 3 had sold a gajillion copies, but they have announced that it has sold more than 65 million copies. Is the current benchmark for Wild Hunt.
Yeah.
Big numbers.
That's pretty nuts compared to like Witcher 2, you know? Like I remember when Witcher 2 was coming out, like in the Xbox 360 era, I was just kind of like, oh, you know, it's kind of that double A, maybe not double A, but you know, like not a huge triple A like big RPG. It's just like, oh yeah, you know, it's that Witcher series, that one. Like it's just kind of another series, and now it's just like the biggest one.
Yeah, like
at least one of them.
I remember like thinking like when Witcher 3 came out, like when it reached like the 5 million, 10 million sold like mouse, it's like that's unfathomable. Like that's unthinkable. That's crazy. And now here we are. It's like, oh yeah, we're way past that. It's like it has taken on a life of its own, and to some extent, that's probably, you know, a core pillar, a financial pillar of that studio. And even though they also have Cyberpunk. Well.
People smarter than me might be able to argue how like Poland's government incentivizes developers like financially and, you know, supports them in whatever legislation allows, you know, developers in that country to thrive. Because there's a bunch. Like Polish dev scene is pretty big. Obviously, CD Projekt being one of the crown jewels, if you will, at this point.
And then it's interesting to see like the immediate like things coming out of CD Projekt Red right now is like I think Edge Runners 2 is getting like an Anime Expo panel, so we'll have like a new update on that, and they also have like some Cyberpunk collaboration event going on right now with Wuthering Waves, so you can get like Lucy and Rebecca from that there. So it's just kind of interesting seeing like CD Projekt reaching out like in more unconventional methods to, even though they don't have like an immediate game in the pipeline, they still have some relevancy outside of that in the current day and age.
That collab is like max FOMO. It has like a separate currency just to get them, and once it's like they're gone, it's like those currency will just like poof.
Well,
oh my god!
Better get them then, Chow.
I was like, I'm grinding away right now in Wuthering Waves.
Don't worry, I clowned myself in Enfield just recently.
Which fighting game did Lucy show up in?
Guilty
Gear.
Okay. Like, I knew there was one of them. I just forgot which one.
And then the last major headline we have is yet another hardware price increase due to the economic conditions of the day. This one specifically from Valve and the Steam Deck. So, Josh, take it away.
Oh, it's a pretty brutal one. Like these are the Steam Deck OLED models, where the standard 512 gigabyte size one, it was previously $549 is now $789 and then for the 1 terabyte OLED, it was previously $649 now it's $949. This was all raised without, you know, any prior notice. There's no like, hey, these prices are going to be set at this date like other platforms did. It's like, no, there was just kind of like a sudden update with the updated prices. And then, of course, this affects other territories with the price increases as well. Like the Canadian dollar price increases are giga brutal as well. So it's kind of, it sucks. Like there's no way to go about it. Like this doesn't change the specs or anything. These were sold. They're just being sold at a higher price because of current, you know, price increases like in RAM and other components. And because it's kind of like I feel so mixed about this because it's much more severe than like the price increases that you saw like with the Switch 2 for example. But in this case, like Valve is existing in a different market than the other platform holders because people could still play Steam games on their PCs. It's not as unlike Nintendo games on Switch 2. Those games on Switch 2 can only be played on Switch 2 for Nintendo's catalog at least. And so Valve has less ways to subsidize the cost of like Nintendo and Sony. In that regard, I think I so that's why I kind of understand like why the price increase is so severe. It sucks. Don't get me wrong. It sucks. I think the thing that really irks me is that it's just so sudden and without prior notice. Where the other the platform holders with their price increases, at least they gave a set date of like this is when the price increases will come into effect. It's usually like maybe like a 2 to 4 week, if not more than that, notice. This was like if you didn't get in by this date and time and didn't know this was happening, um, sucks to suck, you know. And there's no there's no indication that it's going to go back down anytime soon. Stings,
Like
man.
what is the price of the Steam machine gonna be?
Yeah, that's also the other factor in this is like, well, if this is where we are now with the Steam Deck, then when the Steam machine theoretically theoretically comes out, what is the price of that? Are people looking at $2,000 minimum then?
They'll be dead on arrival. The system will be just, oh my god. I was so hyped about it. Like last year, I was like, oh yeah, I was just thinking getting like a second machine that's like, just for other uses. But now, I think that dream's out the window.
Yeah, I think a lot of people just they don't have any hope.
Yeah, so I do not have a Steam Deck, and it's one of those things. The reason why I don't have a Steam Deck is because I wouldn't like I didn't immediately like see like the need for me to use one, but it's always one of those things that I would like consider like, you know what, maybe I should get one, or maybe I could like I would use it in at cases here and there. So I was kind of one of those fence sitters. So price increases like this suck, for me, because like, oh well, now I'm less likely to bite the bullet and get one. Because now it's $300 more expensive or whatever.
Yeah, I guess all of these things are still out of stock, whether it's the official stock or the refurbished stock. But the refurbished stock is still it's still out of stock. You still cannot buy these because there's none in stock. But the LCD version of the Steam Deck refurbished is still priced reasonably in terms of like for the 64 gigabyte, it's $279 for the 256 gigabyte LCD refurbished, it's $319 US, and then the 512 gigabyte LCD refurbished is $359 US. So you can still get one of these at a reasonable price when it comes back into stock, but obviously, it's subject to change at any date and time on these. So if you want to get one of these, keep an eye out for the refurbished LCD models. That's the only way to get one of these on the cheap until they decide to raise the prices on those.
Yeah. So that's it for bigger news. We still have a handful of headlines here for some actually like 3 indie RPG indie or like AA announcements here. Some of these are like published by like Deck 13. I don't remember if these were all announced at the same like event or not, but they all just happen to line up on this week. So in no particular order, the first one of these 3 announcements is a sci-fi fantasy RPG, Gravastar. This one is a turn-based, like a traditional turn-based RPG, but they say it's designed where that like once 2 enemies or like a party member and an enemy come into battle, it is inspired by a 2D arcade fighting games. So like it actually goes to like that side profile like perspective as if you're playing a traditional fighting game. And I don't know exactly, like you can kind of glean from the trailer how that might work with like button inputs, but that's kind of what Gravastar is trying to say is like the hook for their game. Slated for PC, PS5, Switch 2, and Xbox. No specific year announced. The second one is a turn-based tactical RPG called Runesmith. This one is an isometric RPG where you play as a dwarven smith. So it's from indie studio TerraHard. They've been around for like 13 years or so. I went to their website to see if I had recognized what other games they'd worked on. I didn't really recognize them, but this is the studio's first RPG. It was showcased during Indie Quest 2026. That was the name of the showcase. And the third one is called Full Circle. This is the one being published by Deck 13. The developer is called Second Player Games. This one kind of looks like a Star Ocean-ish. It's got kind of an HD 2D. They call it HD 2.5 HD RPG, but it looks kind of like the newer Suikoden HD 2D. That style of games from like the last 6 years.
It kind of has Legend of Dragoon timed hits, like because there's a certain like action element to it to get more damage out of like timed inputs, and it does have that like polygonal matching up the square into square QTE that is sort of like Legend of Dragoon. Funny.
It will have a playable demo during Gamescom. So yeah, we'll keep an eye out for Gravastar, Runesmith, and Full Circle. For trailers for upcoming games, we got another character showcase for the upcoming Granblue Fantasy Relink. This one is for, I pronounced this 2 weeks ago, Fraux.
Mm-hmm.
So we have an English and Japanese trailer introducing this character and their voice.
I didn't know she'd be Bayonetta Chow.
I hope that you would think like that before like they even show this character, because okay, so these characters are the evokers, right? Technically in the fighting game they have one evoker, which is Nier. She has like a death beside her.
She had like her puppet. Yeah, she's
so
I played her when she was broken, and then they nerfed her. Like,
Yeah, well, rebuffed her again, but the evokers all have like they're all like kind of not in the right mind. Let's just say that a lot of the evokers are.
What are you talking about? Just the most mentally stable character I've ever played in fighting game.
Fraux is like the only, probably one of the few good evokers like that's not insane. Like one evoker is like Lobelia. If you buy his like character skin, he is literally like torturing and murdering some girl in the background while you're talking to him. And he's like, "Oh, Captain, what's up?" It's like
Okay.
like everyone's like really messed up. These characters are. Obviously, like I think next they'll announce the video character showcase.
Yeah, well, so whatever. Like they're doing these character trailers. Some like I don't know if she's gonna be the next one that they show off, but they're kind of their social media is going through like all the old characters, and then they kind of just threw in Frau in there as well.
Yeah, because Frau is extremely popular. Like fan base, it's like she's the one like everyone's like first evoker, even my first evoker, right?
Oh yeah, I have a friend who had no intention of picking up this expansion until they announced Frau. And they're like, well,
she's like, but she comes like pretty late into the game. Like technically, she was in the OG version of the game, but she was not playable like in the mobile game because they had like this one event called like Defense Order. It was a terrible event because you basically have you joined factions. It was either you join like Frau's faction or you join I forgot what the old man's name is. But
everyone
there's an old man evoker, like a super old guy that sleeps. And it's like, do you think I'll join the army of the cute girl or the fucking old man? Of course I'm gonna join the army of the cute girl. So there was like an inflated army of the red side versus everything else. It's like, and it's like, oh wait, this is unbalanced. It's like let's delete this event and rework the entire like system on how to get the evokers, and then that came back 8 years later. So
well, I'm looking forward to maybe building a Frau in Endless Ragnarok. She seems cool. She has like 2 stances, and then you fill them up, and then she goes Bayonetta crazy style.
But these are like new characters technically, right? Like I was always complaining about in Granblue, like all these games they always kept showing OG characters like Lancelot, Vayne, because they're like old school, right? But like Frau is like new, and same with Video. Video like only came out maybe like 4 years ago. So that's considered new.
Yeah. Everyone's excited by like these new additions for sure. Like I feel like the like attention of this game has been reinvigorated in a way previously didn't see like Beatrix and
Matrix is awesome and stuff.
Eustace
but,
is cool, but they're fairly old characters. Like they're cool, but they're fairly old compared to like.
But there's like lots of new characters like at the point to you know. I mean, it's in the state where I think you're definitely a lot of newer characters.
Yeah, if they ever do a Relink 2, I think people are definitely going to keep an eye out. Like, okay, like if you're doing a Relink 2, what does the roster look like?
I think they need a 12 generals, which is like the Zodiacs. So technically, you've got the original, the first Zodiac in the fighting game, which is the sheep, Anila.
Yeah.
And they probably need one more for Relink because there's no 12 generals in the in Relink. I mean, technically they added Evoker, and
people want hundreds of playable characters that all feel different.
But they added Vikala, the rat in the fighting game. Yeah, she was the most popular character in Granblue by a long shot. I think people kind of like hate this character now because she's like overexposed. Like they always put her in events and stuff, and she's always like this fail girl kind of event like stuff. And so I guess people are kind of annoyed because of how much exposure she get as a character.
Mm-hmm.
But if they want to put one more,
I mean, if they want to print a lot of copies for the sequel, they'll probably put her in it.
I don't want her as it just because like there's too much exposure to this character, and I think her using like nothing but like bunch of like party tricks kind of weaponry sounds kind of weird for real. I think that's my opinion. I'll be lame and take the safe choice. I would put Vajra, which is the dog. She just uses a katana, and just probably more safer bets.
We should probably move on. Yeah, we're getting. Sorry.
Sorry. That's what happens. You have a Granblue expert.
It's too easy to yap about this.
I don't mind it. It's kind of cool to hear some like, I played Granblue Fantasy Relink completely blind. It's like I don't know who's new and who's old. I know who's popular based on whether or not I recognize them.
Also, Josh, I told you it's like I did not have the time to grind to start all over again for the PC version, so I stole my friend's save file and just edit my.
It's fucking crossplay, dude. Who cares now?
I know, but I was like, no, I don't want to do all that grind again. Just
it doesn't matter where you start now.
They literally told you it's like you want access to the new end game content or the new content, you had to get through the entire game again, right? So
I mean, you just have to do.
So do you just have to? Yeah. Okay. Just have to do. Okay. So I don't have to do anything else. Okay.
You don't do Lucilius. You don't have to do the Behemoth. You just have to get to Bahamut. That's it. Like the Tale of Bahamut's Rage. I think that you just have to complete that once, and then you're good to go to start.
I'll still need to save 5. Still save 10 hours.
I mean, I'm dumb because I wanted to introduce myself and and have a fresher, refamiliarize myself with everything. So I had this stint of like adding like additional 10 to 15 hours like a week or so ago, 2 weeks ago at this point. So I got like the Sandalphon and the 2 other characters that were Clean and the other dude. And also did all the
Siete song, yes.
Yeah,
we don't call her by their English name.
Whatever, dude. I don't fucking remember the 2 names that people like. But yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready.
We got a lot of trailers for the upcoming Embers of the Uncrowned. This was the Nexon Dark Fantasy MMO that we first talked about back in April. So it's going to have it's going to be playable during the next Steam Fest. Let's see. Did I write down when that was? June 15th. And we also got trailers for 3 of the classes here. It looks like those classes are Stormbringer, Executioner, and Spectral Blade.
As I understand it, these are the 3 classes. Like there might be,
Gotcha.
Like specializations within these, but like these are your 3 choices.
The way they describe this demo is a bit interesting. I mean, it's fine, but just like it will feature main quests and side quests. Okay. It'll feature 180 minutes of gameplay to clear the main quest and 480 minutes of total content. Which is like
that's so funny.
Like okay, up to the minute.
Surgical.
Yes.
What are hours?
Yeah, but So that's only 2 weeks away, really, the Steam Next Fest. Not just for this, but just in general. So
Yeah, give it to me. 480 minutes. What does that translate to hours and minutes?
8 hours, right? So
Yeah, 8 hours.
Why don't they just
8
say
hours
that?
of gameplay. I don't know.
480 is a bigger number.
Yes, that is true. They could tell you how many seconds it is. No, anyway.
Oh, that'd be awesome if
Uh,
they did that, actually.
It reminds me, like, whenever RPG is like, this game has 130,000 words. I'm like, I don't know what that means. The other trailer we got, this is a trailer that I wish showed more than it does. It's for the upcoming Gothic 1 remake, which is releasing in basically a week. I just replayed Gothic 1. This is a replayed, played for the first time. This is a look at the combat system. It's called the making of. It's like the making of series combat. So I was expecting this to go into detail, but it really doesn't at all. It's less than a minute long, and it's voiceover basically saying like, we know that a lot of games, action RPGs, have similar combat where you have like light attacks, heavy attacks, special attacks, and stamina bars. We didn't feel that would fit our game, so we went a different route. We went with like progression-based combat. That's it. Like, what does that mean? And
What does
in
that
the
mean? Did
in
they
the
explain?
original, yeah, not really. In the original Gothic 1, what you have to do is you have to hold a button. I forget if it's shift or control, and then you use your directional keys. Like you're basically like planting your feet and then you swing your weapon. Like you can't move and swing at the same time, at least not without the use of like abilities, like at its core. So obviously this game is different, but
Is that
it doesn't
progression
really.
based?
I don't know. Like you need different stats to equip different weapons, and of course that affects how much damage you do. But like, isn't that like most RPG combat? Not all, but most. Like, anyways, I'm interested to see like what the combat is actually like, because this trailer doesn't really explain it. It's maybe I missed something, but it's like I don't think I did. It's only a minute long.
When I hear progression-based combat, I think like Saga series. You do attacks, you get different abilities based on how the more you use sword attacks, the more likely you're going to get sword abilities. I don't know. That's what I think of.
I
I
don't know
will
what
say,
progression-based combat looks like. Level
even
ups, more skills to learn.
even though this doesn't do a good job explaining the combat, I will say like, oh, blood flies, I recognize those. Oh, the golem on the bridge, I fought that guy. Like now that I played Gothic 1, like I know what this is or whatever.
You got your fucking
So
glove shit on moments. And that's not to say that like anything bad, but it's just like you get the
no,
references now. You understand like what they're showing you now.
Well, that's the whole
Compared to like
reason.
most people seeing it.
That's the whole reason why he played the Gothic
Yeah,
was
yeah.
to have that
so,
context.
mhm.
Which is good.
This one I put in the update section. This game was first announced back in 2020. Anima Song from the Abyss from publisher Anima Project. I guess it was a follow-up to Anima Gate of Memories. And Anima Song from the Abyss has.
Isn't this like
Go
a
ahead.
tabletop series?
I thought
I don't remember.
the Anima Gate Members got like an HD remaster, updated re-release not that long ago.
Set in the Anima Beyond Fantasy book universe.
Oh, that's what I'm thinking.
Just not one I'm familiar with. Oh, it is a role-playing game. Okay. So this is okay. I'm just not familiar, so my bad. I don't mean to come out like I'm not an authority on Anima.
Anima fans are educate us. We don't know shit.
All right, but we have a new release date for Anima Songs from the Abyss. We'll be releasing in 2027 for PS5, Xbox, and PC, and we have a new like 90-second trailer announcing the release window. For sales, we already talked about Witcher, of course, was a big sales update. But Heroes of Might and Magic Olden Era, this has been really a success story for Hooded Horse and Unfrozen. In early access, Olden Era has hit the 1 million copies milestone. So real cool to see.
They also have a roadmap throughout their early access, and seems like a lot. The first one, I just kind of glanced at it, and the first one coming at quarter 3 2026, and I saw that you're gonna have an update to the emote wheel. Thank God.
Mm-hmm. It's not as bad, but it reminds me of the Cyberpunk roadmap that we have clowned on multiple times, where they say we're working with player feedback, UI updates and improvements, constant quality of life changes, bug fixes. But I will say that underneath that, they really do go into detail. They say
Yeah.
matchmaking rework, Thieves Guild, editor improvements, match statistics. Like it is a good roadmap.
It is unique in the sense that there's like a sort of competitive scene because you can have matches in this game.
With that, we'll close out by going into like our date rundown. This one's kind of been a theme of the last couple of years, but another like 2000s era Japanese like feature phone game, flip phone game, is making its way to PC. This is Namco Chronicle is going to be getting a G Archive port for Switch and PC on May 28th. It uses Namco franchises that I don't recognize: Valkyrie's Adventure, The Tower of Joaga, Bravo Man. Like maybe I wasn't there, but like Kite's post on this talks about which series are featured. I'm not familiar with them, but maybe if you were a Namco fan.
I know Tower Joaga and Valkyrie.
There's a Gilgamesh there too.
Yeah,
Tower
I mean
Joaga is
from Tower
oftentimes
Joaga,
is oftentimes just like one of the very first concepts of what you call an RPG.
Yeah, definitely a pioneer in that sense. And also, like, you know, there's also like an anime adaptation that a lot of people's first exposure to Tower Joaga was the anime as well.
Doesn't have Wonder Momo. They didn't list Wonder Momo. Everyone's probably wondering what the hell is Wonder Momo.
Couple other release dates. Skyship Quest Story is a game that's currently available on mobile devices and Switch. It'll be releasing on Steam on June 1st. Veritas Tale, Witch of the Dark Castle, is going to be releasing on PC on July 9th. We talked about this game a few months back. It's the one that has artwork from Vanillaware veteran Yoshio Nishimura. It's like 300 artworks from a single artist. So he's worked on Odin Sphere, Dragon's Crown, 13 Sentinels. So
yeah, this is the closest that we're gonna get to a Vanillaware S game, like from official, I guess, ex Vanillaware stuff on PC. Because this also is being being developed in collaboration with Mass Escape, which you know which is the Hitoshi Sakamoto's company, and it often works with Vanillaware for their releases. On the soundtrack front, this has quietly become one of my most anticipated titles. The more I see it, I really want to play it. It really sucks that it's coming out on the same day as Endless Ragnarok, but it is what it is.
I hadn't even clocked that. Shit.
Yeah. But I definitely will want to check it out. Yeah, for sure.
I love the user interface. It looks so good.
It's so good. Everything about it looks so good. I'm so down.
This one is another kind of like the Anima game. This is another game that's been a little bit dormant for a bit. This is a story-driven vampire RPG called Nighthawks. It'll be releasing on PC this fall. And when I went to look at like what is this game, it was kickstarted back in 2018. Was originally slated to release in 2021. Clearly, that didn't hit that. But cool that they've made it to the finish line because so many games don't, and we'll be releasing this year.
Yeah, there's also this was also like at a previous Steam Next Fest as well. So there is definitely proof of life. People got to play it during that. It is a real project.
Oh look, it says it is a sprawling 800,000 word role playing adventure. There you go.
What does that mean?
I don't know.
It's a lot of words. At least it says words, not characters. Like some description, like there's like 800,000 characters in our script. It's like, wait a minute.
I know the studio behind this game is like Wadjet Eye Games, which I'm not familiar with them myself. I know they've historically have been in like more of like the narrative adventure type space. And I remember when Nighthawks was first announced years ago, some people were excited and some people were not. Like that this is an RPG. So that's a little bit new for this studio.
Steins Gate Reboot will launch on August 20th for Xbox and Steam, and then October 29th for Switch and PS5. So that's interesting.
It's funny
2-month
because
delay.
It's funny
But-
because in a way, this is kind of like a return to how it used to be for the Science Adventure series, where usually it originally would release on Xbox and then would release on other platforms later. Like Chaos Child back in the day was originally on Xbox One and then got ported to other platforms like what, 6 months later?
Yeah, because the 360 came to market first and actually had a solid foothold in Japan for like a few years.
Yeah.
Until until they gave it all up.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I don't know how to
Is
feel
this
about this.
only a
release
thing
now.
for the Western audience? Like, is it also like releasing it at the same time in Japan for those platforms, or?
Good question.
The news post seems to suggest worldwide, but it's also I'm not 100% sure.
In a previous mood post, it is launching on all those platforms simultaneously in Japan. So it's just in the West that's delayed
That is
for those
so
platforms.
weird. What?
Yeah, that is kind of bizarre.
I'd imagine like most of the people that would be interested in Steins Gate would be on PC, but this sucks for the Switch audience because it's like I'd imagine a lot of folks would want to play it there because like a VN and whatnot. But
Yeah, I mean they have to dodge spoilers for several months plus some because they're reading through it.
Is it actually going to be a different story though? Is the question. So
I mean, there's going to be a new ending apparently.
Really?
There's additional shit that's. Being
so is it
added
going to more directly tie into Zero or something? Or
who knows? I don't know. But there's
Shit,
that.
I have to play this then. Fuck.
That's why I'm like at a crossroads too. I'm like, I don't want to get spoiled. Fuck.
Well, I mean, let's be real here. We were both going to play it on PC. It doesn't really matter for us, but
I'm thinking, should I reread the original one before this though? And that's a long ass VN.
Yeah. Crack out my Vita, just fucking, and my Vita copy of that. I'm not.
Yeah,
What, do you think I'm gonna read Elite? It's like I know some people prefer Elite, but it's like fuck that.
No, I'm not reading Elite. Fuck that. I'm reading the original if I'm doing that. I'll just be at our SGF hotel, and Adam's gonna look at me funny as I'm just reading on my Steam Deck.
We have a PC, sorry, not a PC release, a Nintendo Switch release for Viractal. Viractal. It originally released on PC on, let me figure this out, January of this year. It is coming to Switch on September 30th, Switch 1 and Switch 2. And then the last headline I have is that Playground Games' Fable is being delayed from its autumn 2026 release window to February 2027.
Do you think I mean, for one, they this is kind of done dirty in the way that they kind of very, very, very like buried this in a social media post. The way that they announced the delay, and two, I wonder it's because they're trying to avoid Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah, the social media post is basically about it buries the lead. It talks about we have incredible games, Halo campaign evolved, Gears of War E-Day, Modern Warfare 4. We're moving Fable to February 2027. Like, oh, okay. To have the dedicated moment it deserves.
Yeah,
it's like, oh, that's fine. Just like an interesting way to announce it. But
it just sucks because this thing has been delayed again and again, and then last time it's like, oh, we're not delaying it this time, and then it's like, oh, yeah, okay.
Mm-hmm. And that's all of the headlines that I had for this week. So we know many more are coming because, a week from today, y'all will be in California for Summer Game Fest, and Chow and I will be here.
Yeah, you guys have to hold out the fort between not only that, but the State of Play coming up.
Oh yeah, that too.
This upcoming Tuesday. Summer Game Fest, the Xbox thing. I don't know if the Xbox thing is happening before or after the next pod.
I think it's happening on Sunday, so it would be after.
Okay. Let's see, June 7th. That is, that's after the next pod. So you guys are spared from that.
So that just means the next two podcasts will be giant.
There's also the Future Game Show as well. There's a whole bunch of other freaking, you know how it is on the not E3 season.
Yeah.
There's just like 20 different streams
Not to mention, a few weeks from now, there's going to be Adventures of Elliot discussion and like.
Yeah. Have fun, Brian, and whoever else is on to your next pod.
Yeah, because Chow will have to go to his job, and Mikhail will be sleeping, and it'll just be me. It'll be like,
yeah, just do the
be
solo
like
pod, dude.
It'll be like
it'll
a
be
radio
like public
show.
access
Yeah.
radio. Yeah,
Yeah.
like, all right, here I am to talk about RPGs.
Here,
Listen
here.
closely around the fire.
Yeah.
There you go. All right, if you listen to this podcast and you enjoy what we do, leave us a like, leave us a rating. We love to see those. At rpgsite.net, you should bookmark us. You can see the Mina the Hollower review, the Zero Parades review. We have the interview from Suga Munamitsu about Utawarerumono. We have Junior's Bitsummit write-up. Everything is up on rpgsite.net. You should join the Discord, discord.gg/rpgsite. You can find RPG Site on all the social media networks. Just search for RPG space site. You should be able to find us. I will be back next week for another episode of the Tetracast. So until you hear from me then, stay safe, take care, have a good trip in California, guys. And I will see you all next week. I will see you three in 2 weeks, I presume.
We'll just phone in on the next podcast.
There you
Just
go.
Out of the,
From the floor.
Out of the mouth, yep. We're at a behind the scenes, highly confidential presentation. We're podcasting live.
There we go. All right. So you hear from us next time. Stay safe. Take care. We'll talk to y'all later.
Until we see, we'll be on here again in 2 weeks, and I don't know, maybe all hell will have broken loose. We'll see.